Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some reaction to the 2021 Turkish Grand Prix. I don't know about you guys, that one absolutely flew by. I can't quite believe it's already over. I'm genuinely... Yeah, I thought it was gonna. I don't know what I'm saying. It just seemed to be over really, really quickly. Not quite sure how I feel about that one. It's not the thriller that we've had in recent races, I suppose you could say, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. But then again, I'm massively biased, which is why I have a channel called the F1 Word. I love Formula One, so I'm going to love most races, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask. Good afternoon or good evening, whatever you want to call it, to everyone in chat. Good to see you. A few bits to talk about, as always. I've got Dan with me, but I think we'll kick things off, if you want, by having a look at the race result. I was so nervous that I put the wrong one in, like, oh, we're going back to Russia. Turkish Grand Prix result then. Valtteri Bottas, first win of the season, first win since Russia last year. Could it be his last for Mercedes? Great performance from Valtteri today. Genuinely really happy for him as well, because I really wanted him to win a race before he left Mercedes, and he's done that. So great stuff. Max Verstappen, second place. Sergio Perez in third. Another driver I'm thrilled to see up on that podium. Charles Leclerc, almost made my prediction of a Ferrari win come true. Not quite. Fourth place for him. Lewis Hamilton, fifth. Not very happy after the race. We'll talk about that, I am sure. Pierre Gasly in sixth. Lando Norris, seventh. Yeah, weekend for McLaren, I'd say. Eighth for Carlos Sainz. Brilliant today. I don't know where we'd be without Carlos Sainz today. Lance Stroll in ninth. Esteban Ocon getting that final point there. For 10th place for Alpine. The two Alphas, Gio outpacing Kimi, 11th and 12th. Ricardo, 13th, 14th for Tsunoda, 15th for Russell. Alonso down in 16th. Gutted for him, thought he was going to have a mega weekend. 17th for Latifi, 18th for Vettel, 19th for Mick Schumacher, and 20th for Nikita Mazepin, who almost played a massive part in the outcome of this year's World Championship. I'm sure we'll talk about that much later in the video as well. But let's say a very good afternoon, evening. Which is it, Dan? How you doing, mate? It's been a while. I've missed you.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that for starters. I'm sure by the end of this stream you won't be saying that.
Give it 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I feel it's evening. I feel we've got to that stage, but not a bad race today.
Yes, I said at the start, it wasn't the thriller, one of those the most thrilling races, but it was another one of those that was tense and lots of intrigue, and I'm sure we'll talk about it properly throughout. I'm going to start. Well, first of all, I'm going to start by saying good evening, Charles. Good to see you, mate. Thank you so much for that incredibly generous contribution. Massively appreciated, as always. Hope you enjoyed that one. I can't remember. I feel like you're a Lewis Hamilton fan. Refund. Thank you very much, mate. Always appreciate it. And thank you as well to James Welling for your contribution to every contribution, no matter how big or small. Always massively appreciated and goes towards equipment. Hopefully some races next year as well, so all gets put in a special little bank account. I'm a millionaire. I'm not really. Thank you very much, guys. Massively appreciated. Let's kick off. I want to do this team by team, I think, Dan, because it kind of feels like one of those races. It's probably the best way to do it. So we will start with the top three, though. And Valtteri Bottas today. So happy, I said it at the start, that he got that win today, because possibly his best chance of the season, I suppose, with Hamilton having to come through the season. I was desperate for him to get a win again in his final season for Mercedes. It's been a long time. But today, he's not... I think David Coulthard made the point at the podium, and I've put it in my notes. It wasn't dominant in the sense that he bogged off and lapped up to third place, but it was very well controlled, and I don't think it ever really looked, aside from maybe a little moment where we thought Leclerc might go to the end, I don't think it looked like Bottas was going to lose that one. Absolutely fantastic performance and a well-deserved victory.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming for him, bless him. I mean, over a season ago, he last won in Sochi, and I feel this is one of his more comfortable ones. Never really came under pressure from Verstappen, who kind of had his, I don't want to say issues, I think that's a little bit too far, but had that kind of steering knock and something with the gears as well. Either way, Bottas was very comfortable, I think, in the lead. And when Leclerc took the lead, wasn't too difficult to re-overtake him. So for the season he's had so far this year, without that victory, with Hamilton clearly the best, but also Verstappen comfortably in front of him, and for a lot of the season, Norris in front of Valtteri, I think it's nice to just finally tick that box off. And you're right, this could be his last victory for Mercedes. It could be his last victory in Formula One. And thinking about it, could be the last time in a long time we see a Finnish driver win a Formula One race. So it was quite a moment today. And for me, before the race even started, I was a little bit nervous for Valtteri. Not because he was the lone Mercedes at the front, because I think Perez coming through those kind of midfield positions, I thought he wouldn't really be in the fight for the victory. But I was nervous from the fight from Verstappen. Even though Mercedes all weekend long looked like they had the pace, look at Sochi. Look at Valtteri's defense of Verstappen. It wasn't really there. And thankfully today, he never really had to do that. Turn one, he was pretty much gone, and Max never really caught him back up. But that was the only real threat I think he really came under today, and it never really materialised. So a comfortable job from Valtteri, but deserved nonetheless.
Yeah, I always get it wrong. Plasilobium in chat just saying Bottas is usually rubbish in the wet, but not today. When I saw the picture of the rain, I was like, well, that's going to really throw a spanner in the works for Mercedes. It's a great opportunity for Max, but you compare it to last year. Did he have five, 6 spins last year in Turkey in very different surface, very different conditions, I guess. Well, similar. Well, no, I suppose similar conditions. Just it was just as slippy in the dry as it was in the wet last year in Turkey, wasn't it? But so many spins. So I saw the rain and I thought, oh, not again, Valtteri. Come on, this isn't fair. Just let the guy have some luck. Let something go his way. But he was faultless today. A couple of little slides, which were well corrected, and he had to pass Leclerc, which wasn't all that difficult to do, to be fair, on the fresher rubber. But just nailed it today, Bottas. I've not got a huge amount to say. I feel bad because if he had a bad race, I'd have spent 20 minutes telling you why he had a bad race, and then he has a really faultless race, but I can't do anything other than keep saying it was faultless. Great strategy calls on his side of the garage, I suppose you could say. Getting in when he needed to for the fresh inters. Just absolutely, just so pleased to see him there. And it's a great point, actually, you make about the Finnish driver thing. I never really considered that. Kimi retiring, Bottas going to Alfa. I mean, they could be the team to beat next year. We don't know, of course, but they could also be the worst team on the grid. It could go either way, couldn't it, in 2022? So, yeah, that's going to depress Finland. Well done, Dan.
So I told you you'd want to get rid of me by the end of the stream. But it's just nice to see him, a race finally go his way. I mean, how many times, you mentioned it there, how many times this year have we spent a very long time moaning about his performances, races where he's not really been near the podium, or Baku where he could never really get into the points. It's just nice to see a whole weekend come together because it's been a very long time. I think we've had some races since Sochi last year, but it feels like it's been a really long time since we've seen a weekend like this from Valtteri.
Yeah, I'll admit, I'm glad I didn't go over the line and give it the old "to whom it may concern" because that was quite cringe when he did that in Russia last year. It's like, come on, Valtteri, shut up. But yeah, no, I'm really, really happy for him. He was obviously happy on the podium. Great trophy, by the way. You can see it in that picture there. But yeah, really happy for him. And yeah, like I said, the reason I say that, and it's not a dig at him for his performance, I'm just saying that, if Hamilton doesn't have to take another engine penalty, he's not going to be allowed to finish ahead of Hamilton, is he? Unless he can do it on pure pace and get somebody between him and Lewis Hamilton. So this could be his last shot at a win this year, and I hope he gets another chance. I hope he does, but he's got one, and that's all that matters. Because I think if he'd gone through another winless year, I know he had one in, was it 18?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, if he'd gone through another one of them at Mercedes, I think that would have been a really crappy way to sign off for him. Not so much for the team. They've got George Russell coming in. They've got potentially a world championship. Who knows which way it's going to go? But yeah, chuffed for him. We were British again. Chuffed. Why not? Bottas has improved a lot since his move was announced. Says approve. I'm sorry, mate. You know who you are. Just if you ever see me, punch me for pronouncing that one wrong. Yeah, good points. Again, since contract, it's kind of the opposite to what we expect from Bottas. Gets his contract signed, suddenly starts performing. Normally, we've seen in the past, he gets his contract in the summer and then falls away. So I suppose, aside from having to play the team game where he's needed, there's nothing really for him to lose now, is there? So go out. I said it in a preview a few weeks ago. I think go out there and have some fun, Valtteri. Just get racing, get some big points, get some great performances in, and then show Mercedes what they're potentially missing out on next year, I suppose, is the attitude he's got to take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure Sochi was a great race. I know the result ended up being quite good, but he did get stuck in that midfield. But the overall sentiment, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's kind of got free will now. I know the Constructors' Championship, how much is he going to really care about that? I'm sure he will, because this may be his last chance ever to fight for some kind of world championship. So that will be in his mind. But he's kind of racing for himself at this point. He wants to show Mercedes, like you've mentioned, he wants to show them what driver they're losing. He also wants to show Alfa Romeo that they've made a great decision. I know there's mini stories this week, rumours about Andretti coming on board. But either way, he wants to go to his new team with a nice run of form, go into the new regulations with a real kick in his stride. So the result today, of course, is massive, but with 6 races to go, it's just going to be how much is he going to be forced to play that second fiddle and how much is he really going to be able to fight for victories. I'm not too sure he'll be allowed.
Sort of a random tangent. On the F1 word, never. I just thought, I say he had good performances since he signed his contract. I mean, since he was announced that he was leaving the team. But that, as you sort of touched on there, he didn't have a great weekend in Russia, did he? It was okay. But doesn't it feel like this decision was announced about 8 months ago?
I can't remember. To be honest, when you said it, I can't remember when they did it. I can't remember. Was it just
after Belgium,
Monza?
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Was it before Zandvoort or after? I can't remember.
It was. Oh, chat will let us know, but doesn't feel like a long time ago, and it's not. I guess that's the problem with rumours and speculation. Is you start talking about. We've been talking about this since Sakir last year, so for nearly 12 months. So it is quite crazy, really. But yeah, we'll roll on to Max Verstappen. Massive day for him. I think he was a little bit disappointed that he couldn't take the fight to Mercedes for the win today. But I think this was looking at practice times, how qualifying went, how the race ended up as well. It was very much a Mercedes track this weekend, wasn't it? And if Hamilton had been up there with Bottas or kept that pole position, I think he'd have probably disappeared this afternoon. It was just one of those days, but I think 18 points for him, especially with Hamilton down in 5th place. That's a massive result. Great damage limitation once again, second race in a row with that great damage limitation. He's got a 6-point lead now. It's ebbing and flowing, mate. I am so. I'm loving 2021. I don't want 2022 and their damn new regulations. I want to keep the rules the same and go into next year. Let's extend it and have a super season. Why not? 21-22.
Don't start that again. Don't start that again. But yeah, it's been so close all year long. And to think we've got 6 races to go and there's 6 points between them is nuts. I still can't wrap my head around that. And we've got a constructors fight if anyone really cares about that. But Max today, I'd say I wouldn't say it's a great damage limitation, only because I don't really think he could have done much more. And I think it was more about judging where Hamilton finished. I don't think of course, they would have loved a victory, but I think they came into the race today hoping for second. And I feel they were more looking at Sergio Perez's race. I think they were thinking, if we can get a double podium here and hopefully be nip and tuck with Mercedes in the constructors, that's great. And then if Hamilton works his way maybe to 4th, that's not ideal. But if he can stay around 5th or 6th place, that could be a great result. So I think from Max's side of things, that was his quietest race of the season that he hasn't won. I think he didn't really put a foot wrong. And that's pretty much all I can say, because similar with Bottas, we didn't really see a lot of them. They made no mistakes. They were really comfortable in the position they were. He didn't have the pace to fight with Valtteri because, you're right, Mercedes really did seem to have the edge this weekend. And he was comfortably in front of his teammates. So for Verstappen, not a lot more he could do. Like I said, I wouldn't say it was an incredible damage limitation, but still not bad. And again, he's taken that lead of the standings. And if you told him that coming into this weekend, I think he'd have been very happy.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see much of them, really, but I'm sick of the sight of Perez, Hamilton and Sainz. That's all we saw all day. I'm joking, of course. But yeah, it was a quiet one for him, 14.5 seconds off the lead in the end. Maybe it seemed early on he was managing pace, did pick up the pace a bit. Bottas responded, so I don't think really Bottas and Verstappen. I mean, look, I'm not in that car. I couldn't do it. I feel like there was a lot of pace and tyre management today from the two up the front. Verstappen obviously knew he didn't have the pace to take on Bottas. Bottas was comfortable. They just looked after things, didn't they? Brilliantly controlled by both of them. So not a lot to say, really. Once again, Sergio Perez, P3, chuffed again to see him up there on the podium. He needed that. He needed that, Dan. He's had some really frustrating weekends. He talked afterwards about how things will look, in the last few races, things have looked good and he's on the brink of the podium, and then something happens in the last few laps and it all falls apart. I was awful about him post Russia in the reaction, which I'm sorry for, Checo. You're not listening and I don't blame you. I felt awful for that because he was a lot better when I watched the race back than I thought he had been. It was just that rain at the end that caught him off. So just good to see him up there, and great as well for Honda. a great way to say goodbye to Honda, a double podium, and it's a big, not a big swing, it's a swing in the Constructors' Championship, bringing Red Bull sort of back into play. Although I do think if you're talking Constructors' Championship, Mercedes will pinch that one. I think Bottas will be more consistent between now and the end of the season than Checo. But this is a great day for Checo. He needed that, and probably best result he could have got, really, because Verstappen was never going to be allowed to finish behind him, was he? He was always going to have to let him through, and I do think he would have caught Hamilton had Hamilton not pitted. So P3 is about right for him today. I'm just happy for him, Dan. I can't help it. I was horrible last week.
Don't worry, I've been horrible to him all season long, to be honest with you. So it's about time someone else joins me. It's a big result for him. He really did need that. And we're all very aware of what Sergio Perez can do. And you and me in particular, and many in chat will also be very aware of just how underrated he was at Racing Point, at Force India. I'm sure Jonty's screaming at us right now as well, screaming at how underrated, how good some of those drives were, and they were never really appreciated. And that form we saw, especially last season, hasn't quite materialized just yet at Red Bull. And I think a lot of us have been slightly disappointed, but more so surprised that it's not really been that dream podiums every other weekend that most people were hoping for and kind of expecting. When Valtteri on weekends, he's not been there. It's not always been Perez who's been picking up those positions. So to qualify, was it 8th place? I want to say yesterday. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in that midfield once again, either way, to qualify there, I think, again, I thought that this isn't quite good enough. And that is one thing heading into next year, I think he does really need to work on, because he gives himself such a hard job to do on a Sunday. He's got it done today. And first of all, that opening lap, lovely, perfect. That's exactly what Checo needs to be doing. It's what he's done throughout his entire career. Keep it clean, keep it safe, make a couple of positions, and then slowly work his way forward. And though in some races this year, he's kind of got stuck and he's not been able to make those overtakes. He's got caught in that midfield behind your Norrises and your Leclercs. Today, he was making moves. Today, he made the highlight of the race, defending Lewis Hamilton, which is something we've not seen other Red Bull drivers be quick enough to do recently. We've not seen Checo in that position to do this season that often. So the fact he was given the opportunity to do it today, and for pretty much a solid 3 or 4 laps, held Lewis Hamilton behind and gave him his money's worth in that epic battle through the final sector, I don't think Red Bull could really ask for much more. I think there will be a couple of people saying maybe he got slightly lucky with Leclerc and Hamilton going for that overcut strategy that didn't work out today, which I'm very upset about. But going a little bit longer, and that did help out Checo. But that fight in itself, I think, is the exact reason why Red Bull want to keep him. And just for his own self-confidence and own self-esteem, being up on the podium for the first time since Paul Ricard, I think, that's a great job. I don't think Red Bull can ask for much more.
2 things. Firstly, thank you, Enforcer Nebula. Basically, me no do maths good today. It was 36 points to Mercedes and 33 to Red Bull. So there is no swing in the Constructors' Championship. If anything, it's still going Mercedes' way. So thank you, Enforcer Nebula. I will buy a calculator or just use the one that's on my phone. Why not? There you go. Also, I think that's possibly the first audible chef's kiss we've ever had on stream. So thank you, Dan. Always a pleasure.
Welcome.
But I'm glad you're nicely bringing us on to that one, because I want to talk Hamilton as well, because obviously I'm going to go team by team. So we'll talk about Mercedes as well now. With Lewis Hamilton. Probably, I think you're right. One of the highlights of the race, that battle between him and Sergio Perez, that was hard, fair, and respectful. That was proper racing for me. So if you didn't see it, Hamilton tried it down the outside of turn 12. Checo was like, nah, not happening, mate. Stayed on the inside, then was around the outside into turn 13. Hamilton squeezed him over to the pit entry to the point where actually Perez went the other side of the bollard. So I'm pleased that wasn't investigated, but the way the FAA are, I'm kind of surprised it wasn't. But I'm pleased it wasn't. Back on track, Checo up the inside of that final corner, then side by side down the straight for Perez to hang on to that position. That is what Sergio Perez is in that car to do, and he absolutely nailed it. So well done, Checo, but that was heart in mouth. That would have been squeaky bum time for Toto Wolff, I'd imagine, sat there in the garage. That was brilliant, Dan. Absolutely loved that. And I want to see more of that. That's why I want Perez and Bottas at the front and fighting with Hamilton and Verstappen more consistently. It'd be great to see Bottas and Verstappen do that, and Hamilton and Perez do that more regularly, as well as apparently Hamilton and Verstappen just running into each other all the time when they get together on track. But yeah, absolutely love that. So massive credit to Checo, but to Lewis as well, because it was just nice to see a proper fight, elbows out, like I say, nice and respectful, but quite a critical moment in the race at that stage.
Yeah, and I think for Hamilton, who was working his way through the pack so nicely in those opening laps, along with Carlos Sainz, of course, that we will get onto because he was everywhere today. But yeah, Lewis, early doors, knew he had a job to do. And I think a lot of us, when he started to catch Checo, was thinking, oh, God, what's going to happen here? Are they going to try and pull the trigger early and get him in front, or to try and do an undercut on Perez? Are they going to go for the overtake? Are they going to just try and sit behind him, save their tyres? But the fact they went for it, and the fact that eventually when they did get side by side, it was so respectful, to be honest, was quite a refreshing change between a Mercedes and Red Bull going side by side this season, because not even just Hamilton and Verstappen, we also had Bottas steaming into the two Red Bulls in Hungary. So it's not been many times this year where they've been clean with each other, but they were. And maybe Hamilton was a little aggressive, putting Perez into the pit lane. But like you mentioned, I'm with you on this. I think they made the nice decision and the correct decision to just ignore the fact he went over the white line, because we have seen drivers do that before, never really side by side fighting each other. That's a new one. And I was interested to see, even just live in the moment, I thought, oh no, that's the kind of thing Michael Massey's going to get the rule book out, give it a big fat underline and say, there's a 10-second penalty, there's a drive through, and that's Perez's race over. So the fact that they ignored it, in one sense, is nice, because it proves that we can have hard and fair racing between two drivers, and the FIA respect that. On the other hand, I can see this causing issues in the future. I think the fact they just ignored it and didn't even investigate it may cause problems further down the line, but we'll get to that another day. We don't need to worry about that for now. But the fact that they were able, for the most part, to keep it clean, to keep it fair and respectful, didn't even bash wheels. Well, there wasn't even a slight bit of contact. That's perfect. That's what we love to see. It gave Red Bull the proof that he's their right man. It gave proof that Hamilton still can do that wheel-to-wheel combat and keep it clean in this championship fight. And just overall, as I've said several times already, I think it was one of the highlights of the race, and really did, I think, spice things up in that mid-phase of the Grand Prix.
I might have a read through actually of the regs, because I wonder if there's a rule somewhere, or one of those F1 unwritten rules where if it's racing and you go outside of the bollard and you're not intending to pit, then that's okay. But if you are coming to the pit, well, say that. I was going to say, if you do come into the pits and you slide off, then and you go the other side of the bollard, then you get a penalty. But Lando Norris didn't, so I don't know what the rule is anymore with that one. Who knows? But yeah, and when I say respectful, obviously I mean no collision, no banging the wheels. I thought that was all fine. That's what I want to see in Formula One. I don't want drivers crashing into each other left, right and centre, but I want to see action. And if we all start getting upset because, oh, Hamilton squeezed him, or Verstappen didn't leave him enough room, or Perez didn't whatever, about every single overtake that doesn't end in contact, then, you know, what's the point in watching racing if they're not going to be able to go racing side by side like that? That was fine by me. Brilliant from both drivers. More please. A little bit, maybe a bit less aggressive than what was going on with Alonso in Hungary, but it kind of a little bit reminiscent of that in the sense that it was two drivers not willing to give an inch, and that was a big moment in the race. It'd be interesting to maybe sit down and work out at some point where Hamilton, in theory, could have ended up had he got past Perez at that point. I don't know, but while we're on Hamilton, got to talk strategy. He's not happy. Came over the radio saying, "I told you we shouldn't stop." He was out on those inters for ages, wasn't he? 50 laps, I think he did in the end on them, somewhere around there. They were basically slicks at the end of it. He wanted to stay out. He was losing time. The team weren't sure, and they decided to kind of pit him at a really bizarre time, Dan. I know that's kind of easy with hindsight to say that, but it feels like when Mercedes said, you know, the first time, box Lewis, that was the time to pit, and he didn't. He stayed out thinking he could keep going. And then he started losing time, and then they've brought him into the pits at a really bizarre time to me, because I think Leclerc said in his interview with Sky afterwards, or in the pen afterwards, that these tyres, these new inters go sort of 7 or 8 laps with graining before you can really start to get the best out of them. So you might get a couple of good laps, then you'll have 7 laps of graining, and then off you go. Well, he pitted with 8 laps to go. So it was just really bizarre to me that they did that, because I don't think he would have hung on to third on those tyres the way he was starting to lose time to Leclerc. I think it was Leclerc and Perez behind. It wasn't Leclerc, was it? Yes, it was. Leclerc and Perez behind. He started to lose that time. And I think they'd have been close if they hadn't got him, but I think they would have got him because obviously as those tyres start to lose more, he's going to lose more time, isn't he, over several laps. At one point, I think Leclerc was 1.3 quicker, and then it was a little bit less, and then a bit more, and then the longer he's on those tyres, the more time he's going to lose. And I just think that's what would have happened. So it just seems odd to me that they didn't cover Perez. Or like you said, actually, Dan, no. Why not go for the undercut? Do you know what I mean? I think you're right there. Why haven't they thought, let's bring him in, undercut Perez, and then go for it from there? I just don't understand the decision. It was sort of like Mercedes were right to call him in, but Hamilton didn't feel it was the right decision. And you think, well, 7-time world champion, got to know what he's talking about. But turns out maybe he should have come in. Are you as puzzled as me? It might just be me.
Very much. No, I'm fully with you on this. I'm really conflicted on the strategy here because from a really black and white perspective, if you'd have given Hamilton at the start of the day and said, look, Bottas is going to win, Max is second, we're going to come home fifth, I think he'd be happy with that. I think he'd think that's a good day's work. He's not lost out to Verstappen that much. He's finished the race, which I think lap 1, starting 11th, he would have been slightly nervous about. So I think from that point of view, it's not a bad day's work. But I do think on this strategy call, they'd committed to staying out. Hamilton said no. The team were happy to go with that. Leclerc, who was leading the race at the time, was also going for the same strategy. So it seemed like that was going to be a potential route for victory for Charles and Hamilton maybe on the podium. Ocon was doing his own thing in the midfield, but he was also copying them, trying to pick up a couple of points. But I feel they missed the crossover to come in. They'd already made that decision, we're not going to do it. And by the time they eventually did come in, it was really just aborting doing the no stop, which in itself is a funny thing to say out loud, a no stop, but they were aborting that and moving to the one stop, but it was too late. So you kind of were not only losing out to the rest of the one stop runners, because as you mentioned, the tyres by that stage weren't going to get into that window by the end of the race, but I feel also you're losing out to the no stoppers. But then there's the gamble of, will they go off the cliff? Will they blister horribly like pictures of Esteban Ocon's car have been over the last 10 minutes or so that have been coming through? So there was a gamble of going out and staying to the end. But for me, they'd already committed. They were maybe 10, 15 laps longer than they should have done. And I'm just really conflicted on if it was the right call or not. Because again, it's looking at the result, it's not bad. It could have been a podium if that tyre hadn't fallen off a cliff. But at the same time, if they had kept on going, would Hamilton have been even more furious that they didn't force him to come in? Because it was only 2 weekends ago where McLaren did exactly what Hamilton wanted to do today. They let him stay out for Norris in this case, and he finished down in 7th. So it's really, really difficult to say if it was the right decision or not. In hindsight, sure, he should have come in earlier. But at the same time, if he'd have stayed out and finished on the podium, which of course we will never know, we'd be saying coming in now or coming in even earlier would also have been a terrible decision. So I'm very conflicted on this one. But as we usually say, we're not paid the big bucks to do this. There are strategists at Mercedes and all these teams that are paid an awful lot of money, that have way more insight than us, really understand if there was going to be that threat of rain that potentially was on the horizon, more coming down in that final sector. We don't know. And we get such a small picture just watching it on TV. So I'll give Mercedes the benefit of the doubt, but I definitely am surprised they decided to abandon that no stop when they did.
This is what I mean by conflicted. With hindsight, should have pitted when they told him to. But at the time when you're watching it, you can completely see Hamilton's argument. The track was okay. The tyres were okay. I think his words were he's sliding around a bit, but it's okay. It's fine. So you can completely understand why he wanted to stay out. But then again, with hindsight, you think, well, why didn't you just follow Max Verstappen? Somebody just said that in chat, I think, actually. That's just scrolled past. I've lost it. I'm sure somebody just said that in chat. I might be completely wrong, or I've just totally imagined it. There you go. Built to JZ Lexus says the safe strat would have been to pit after Max. There was no reason to gamble. That when I think back, Verstappen pits, come in with him, but he didn't want to be behind Perez. It's a really conflicting one. I don't really blame either. It's a heat of the moment decision, isn't it? In that, I don't know. But then you've got to think, if he stays out and he gets a blowout with 2 laps to go, Could be the championship over. So maybe the team pitted him because they were just being cautious. Maybe that I haven't heard the Toto Wolff or a team interview after the race yet. Maybe that was what they were thinking. We'll just get him in, be cautious. But Ocon got his to the end. But Ocon's not fighting for a world championship. Ocon either gets a point or he DNFs, and a point isn't going to make or break Alpine's season. So difficult one. Difficult one, Dan. Let's do some super chats before I roll on. Read some stuff from chat as well. Whoa, hello, Streamlabs. What was it with you? Raz says, Leclerc, if I stay out, what's my pace? Engineer, yes. That was a brilliant exchange. We're coming to Leclerc in a minute. Also, Raz, thank you very much, mate. Says, Bottas showed he can be decent in rain and overtake. Owen England, thank you for your contribution as well. So, good race. Sainz standout. Happy for Bottas. No complaints, except maybe Ham should have a pen for pushing off Perez. I think we've just covered that one, mate. But, yeah. Oh, thank you for your contribution. See what you guys say in chat before we move on to the rest of the field. Like I said, we'll go team by team. So we'll go on to Ferrari and then we'll do AlphaTauri, McLaren and co. So we'll just see what you guys are saying first. Toto did say he was losing 1.5 seconds to Perez and Charles. So that's from Emily. Thank you very much, Emily. So maybe that's the decision's been taken based on that. The positive thing for Mercedes is the car is mega quick, says Marco. It was this weekend. I think Christian Horner was saying, wasn't he, that he thinks Cota's Circuit of the Americas. I know a couple of people who are subbed that hate when I say COTA. Circuit of the Americas is expected to be a bit of a Mercedes track. So I think pretty much 50-50 between now and the end of the season. I'm looking forward to it. We'll do Alonso in a minute. The problem is a team as experienced as Mercedes should not make heat-of-the-moment decisions, but have 3 to 4 strat calls in the back when the situation changes. That's from Red Raven. Thank you very much, mate. And one more. Who have we got? I won't read that one, actually, because that's not what I thought it was about to. And Lewis's race was ruined by the stupidly timed engine penalty, says Elliot. I don't think the penalty is stupidly timed because of Mercedes' pace this weekend. I'll tell you what I think was bizarre, Elliot, is they only took the ICE. I thought they'd go with a full unit is the only thing I'd question on that. Obviously, having sent it all back, they're happy with all the hybrid elements then, Dan, because they've basically taken a brand new IC and strapped the old stuff onto it, which just surprised me a little bit. So we might see more penalties between now and the end of the season. Would you have done it all at once?
Oh, I think if they knew, which it seems like they did, if they knew they were going to have such an advantage like they had this weekend, I am surprised. Yeah, they haven't gone for a full 20, but at the same time, maybe it's easier doing it in 2 lots of 10 and trying to make sure you get pole and you're already pretty much in the points off the start. It's a really tricky one to call. And if they think they can get to the end of the season, 6 more races to go without a penalty, could be doable. I mean, again, there's better, more paid, more qualified people than me that know these things. But yeah, I am a little bit surprised, especially with their advantage they had this weekend.
Elliot just adding to his point by saying Red Bull took the engine penalty to a weak track. Mercedes took it at a strong track. Mercedes were wrong. I hope this isn't decided on an engine penalty, this championship. I think it's too good. Kind of gutting that with the final 3 races of Qatar, Saudi and Abu Dhabi. Not really not a great way to round off this season, is it, potentially? Although we don't know with Qatar and Jeddah, they could be the best that we have ever all season. We don't know, do we? And we don't know what the Abu Dhabi changes are. But just very quickly before we roll on, massive thank you again to Charles Edward Cheese for your contribution. I forgot to say it. It's a big ask because we've got 1,000 watching, 1,045 specifically. But let's see if we can get those likes somewhere near 500 today for Charles for that epic contribution. So please do drop a like. Massively appreciated as always. Shall we talk about Charles Leclerc? I don't know why I did it like that. Why not? I'm cracking up, Dan. I think it's just, yeah. Charles Leclerc, I thought he had it, mate. I thought he'd won it. I thought he was going to stay out on those tyres. The gap, obviously because of that graining phase that Bottas was going through, the gap wasn't coming down like I was expecting when Bottas got on those new intermediates. And I thought, do you know what? He's going to do it. I said on Thursday a Ferrari win. I went with Sainz because I'm an idiot. But it's, I thought Leclerc, he's going to do this. He's going to get this win. And then obviously the time started to fall away. He did ask, as Raz has sort of touched on with his super chat comment, he said to the team, where am I going to be? What if I carry on this pace, where will I end up? And they just basically said, if you stay ahead of Bottas, you'll win. Well, duh. I think he could have worked that one out himself. Thanks, Ferrari. But forgetting that lead for a minute, pretty faultless day from him, really. I mean, he was P3 for most of it. I think, again, with the benefit of hindsight, if he pitted a little bit earlier, maybe he could have been on that podium and beaten Perez today, only 4.3 seconds behind, but great result for him. And also, given McLaren struggles, fantastic result for Ferrari this weekend. So that fight's getting tighter, and I mean, the whole season's tight, isn't it? But yeah, pretty faultless from Leclerc, and this is where Dan comes in and goes, well, apart from the fact that he wiped out 6 drivers or something, I don't know.
Wow. Apart from that massive lockup at the end of the straight.
Oh, is that it?
It's better than the one we did before, but I can't remember what that was. Something pedantic about Max Verstappen. Either way, I do agree with you, mate. I think he's in that mix for driver of the day today, Charles Leclerc, because the result, 4th place, yeah, it's strong. I think you're bang on with the point about McLaren. That's a huge day for Ferrari today. And considering where McLaren have been over the last few Grand Prix, great way to bounce back for Ferrari. But to be in pretty much net 3rd place for the entire race, and yes, it's great being in front of Perez and Hamilton, but the extent he was in front of Gasly, in front of Norris, was almost 20 seconds, 30 seconds at one stage of the race. And yet he was 2 seconds behind Verstappen, who was 3 seconds behind Bottas. That, for me, is mental in a season where Mercedes and Red Bull have clearly the fastest 2 cars. And yes, Ferrari all weekend long looked like they had a good car, but to be in that mix for the win for a good over halfway of the Grand Prix, and like you mentioned, at one stage, looked like he may have done a Ferrari masterstroke with that no stop. Of course, it didn't end up working out that way, but there was 10 laps or so there where I think a lot of people, including myself, thought this really could happen. I think they can be super proud of their job today. I think, like Hamilton, wouldn't surprise me if Leclerc's a bit upset that they didn't stop earlier or didn't go all the way, because he was about 15 seconds in front of Perez. He was also in front of Verstappen when they came in as well. And though Ocon's tyres eventually blistered, he was in a fight all race long in that midfield, whereas Leclerc was pretty much controlling his own pace, apart from that lockup I silly mentioned a second ago, and also another little moment down there as well. I think he could have stolen the podium. Of course, that's a complete guess. I'm happy to put my hands up with that, but I think they could have tried. I think, for me anyway, they were in more of a position than Hamilton was to take a big gamble. They've got less to lose in the constructors, and I think they could have been rewarded. Second would have been a push, but I think they could have stolen 3rd today if they'd have at least tried something. So I'm disappointed for Charles, but his actual race I thought was really, really impressive. And I think that first stint being right there with Max and Bottas, I think that was a phenomenal drive from Charles today.
He seemed fairly pleased after the race, to be fair, Charles. I think if you just said to him this morning, 4th place today, he'd have been happy with that. Beating both the McLarens comfortably in the end. Really anonymous for McLaren. We'll get to them in a bit. But yeah, again, aside from that lockup, and I think he ran wide as well at one point, I think relatively faultless. Well, faultless is wrong then. Very good. Very good performance from Charles Leclerc. His teammate, though, kind of made the race for me today. I think superb Sainz. Once again, started back of the grid, got himself up to P8, some really good overtaking. There was a little phase, wasn't there, in the race early on where every single lap there was a Carlos Sainz overtake, or at least it felt that way, and we actually got to see them. Carlos Sainz was on TV during a race today, which is incredibly rare in Formula One, so really, really, really impressed with him. Not just today, I keep saying it all season. I think he's possibly... could be my driver of the season. Him and Lando Norris. Be tough. I think probably Norris might trump it, but I think it's between them two. If you're looking away from the championship fight, I think he's been brilliant in that Ferrari. And I actually do think he could pip Leclerc in the championship, which would be a hell of an achievement. You know, Sebastian Vettel couldn't do that in a team that he'd been at for a while. So there you go. Sort of last season. I'm talking last season, obviously. Did Vettel beat him in? Oh, great. Now I've just got to give myself a stat to go and look up. Well done, Sean. I can't think what year it was. 2019?
Yeah, I think Leclerc beat him.
He did.
With those
he
two
did.
wins.
24 points. So yeah. Anyway, my point stands. It was just great fun, and I think although it wasn't a thriller of a race, it would still have been a good race without Sainz's overtaking. But I think him coming through the field and Hamilton as well coming through, I think that made the race today. He was excellent. I'm number one Sainz fan this season. Woo, go Sainz.
Now, I hate to be that guy, but he made a
God.
horrible move on Sebastian Vettel, almost wiped him out of the race in those opening
You
stages.
taking a piss?
I am. I am. No, that's the only little fault, and that was what a tiny little correction. Seb saw him coming. That was it. And apart from that, he was the man on the move in those opening stages because even Hamilton got caught behind Yuki Tsunoda. Sainz didn't. Sainz was steaming past everyone, and yes, I know some of them were Alfa Romeos and Williams, and the Haas cars were doing their own thing today. They were even blocking Hamilton themselves at one point. But Sainz was passing everyone here, there, and everywhere. And in a car which isn't a Mercedes, isn't a Red Bull, to be able to do that so comfortably, apart from that move on Vettel, but so comfortably on everyone else was really, really impressive. I think he was one of the first to come in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was one of those early cars to come in. It's worked out a treat. 4 points, starting 19th place. I really don't think you can ask for much more. I think you're right. He's certainly in that mix for one of the drivers of the season. And I think the biggest surprise for me today, I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but Carlos Sainz himself saying it's the first time ever he's got driver of the day. What?
That
That
seems out of order.
that seems so wrong. Like, I'm glad that's just not me thinking that because he's been incredible for the last 3 years. Those 2 years at McLaren, one of the most consistent drivers on the grid, was pretty good at Toro Rosso and not too bad at Renault either. That can't be right, that statistic. But at least today they showed it on TV. So that's probably where the difference is. And he really was that star of the show in the opening few laps. And you're right. One of the drivers of the season, I think, has definitely made the biggest impact in terms of the drivers that have moved teams this year. It's been like that all season long. And to see him in front of Leclerc in the standings and just being a really solid driver for Ferrari has been a really nice change for them this season. And again, for someone who maybe at the start of this year, people were doubting a little bit and thinking maybe he could be moved on for Schumacher in a couple of years, I think he's made himself put himself in a really comfortable position at Ferrari. And today, once again, proving just how good of a driver he is.
8.1 second pit stop as well in my notes, and I'm just looking at the timing screen, Dan. I think he was in the end around about 7.2 behind Pierre Gasly in sixth. So obviously, if you knock off a couple of seconds because your stop's still going to be a couple of seconds, 4.3 behind Norris, could have got Lando for P7 and could have been challenging Pierre for P6. So it could have been even better for him. But I mean, yeah, all right. That incident with Vettel.
No, I was only joking.
Up the inside of 12, touches the white line, bit of a slide, they bang. I know you're joking, mate, but I just want to cover all bases. I don't think there's anything in that. He's not swung towards him deliberately or thrown a wild one at the inside, has he really?
Right,
It was nice and aggressive, but lovely move around the outside and then the inside at that chicane on George Russell. And I know people will say, like you pointed out there, oh, it's an Alfa, it's a Williams. Football analogy. You can only beat what's in front of you. You know, he's got to get the job done, and that's exactly what he did. Lovely move on George Russell. Possibly one of my favourites of the day up there with Lewis Hamilton around the outside of Tsunoda at turn 3 was also a very nice move as well. So one of the moves of the day there from both of those drivers. Carlos Sainz has just been so impressive. And especially, again, you've kind of touched on it there. When you look at how much Ricciardo struggled, how much Vettel has struggled at times, Perez has struggled moving teams. He's hopped in that Ferrari and gone, I like this car, and off he's gone. I mean, and I'm going to reiterate the point I made to you last time we were on stream together. Where would McLaren be if he had stayed? They'd be gone in third. They might even, dare I say, be threatening second. You'll say I'm mental, absolutely mental, and you'd be right. I am absolutely crazy. But they're on 240 points and Red Bull on 397. I'm not saying they'd be threatening as such, but they'd be a lot closer to second, and I think Ferrari will be to them in third if Carlos Sainz had stayed. So I think Danny Rick will get it together. We'll talk about him later, but yeah, I think there'll be a bit of the one that got away there a little bit. That's kind of the story of his career, Carlos Sainz, isn't it? The one that got away. Pierre Gasly, P6. I'm mad for Pierre Gasly on so many levels. I'm angry as well for Pierre Gasly. That incident in turn 1 for me, not a penalty. All right, he spun around Fernando Alonso. The picture's on screen there. He's got Sergio Perez on the inside. If he continues to turn in, he's going to hit Perez. If he carries on and tries to avoid Perez, he's going to hit Alonso. What's he supposed to do? He was sandwiched in turn one. How many times do we see incidents like that get fobbed off as a lap one incident and he gets slapped with a 5-second penalty? It's not destroyed his race. He probably, well, without his penalty, he would have been ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 5th, but he's still 6th place, which is great points. But I think that's really harsh by the stewards.
I'm glad you've said it because I agree. And I thought I was going to get absolutely berated for saying that. Really, really strange. How many times, not only this season, but over the last 4 or 5 seasons, have we seen lap one incidents like that, especially where they get sandwiched and it's just left? I mean, a couple of years ago, everyone knew I was going to have to mention his name. Grosjean, Ricciardo, and Giovinazzi in Sochi, 3 wide. I know it's a bit more of a sandwich in that situation, but a very similar style corner. No incident. Well, a big incident for Ricciardo and Grosjean. Giovinazzi keeps on going, but no penalty because it's a first lap racing incident, a tight corner, and 3 cars. And that's exactly what it was today. Yes, I think Gasly had a little bit more room on the inside, but I think you're bang on. I think if he starts to turn in, that's him spun around, that's Perez's front wing gone, that's maybe 3 or 4 cars steaming into the back of them, and that's 3 or 4 cars out of the race. So that little bit of understeer, Gasly probably thought, well, that's the safer option. Alonso, with that little bit of contact, probably will be able to keep going. He wasn't able to because the contact was a little bit probably more than Gasly was hoping for, probably didn't want anything. So I think it's harsh. And when you look at the results, 6th place, yeah, it's a great job. Again, proving for me, he's in that conversation of one of the drivers of the season. I think he's actually been better than he was last season. Again, in the top 6 in qualifying in an Alpha Tauri is ridiculous. That should not be happening. But I do think it's very harsh. I think that's very, very strange. And of all people to crash into, Fernando Alonso, the man who all weekend long and in the aftermath of Sochi has been saying it's been one rule for one driver, one rule for another on lap one. And ironically, it seems to have happened again today with Gasly getting a penalty when other drivers wouldn't have. So it's really, really strange. And like I've already mentioned today with other incidents, I wonder what knock-on effect that will have for other Turn 1 incidents as we go on for the rest of the season.
I see people in chat talk about they've seen far worse at turn one that have gone without a penalty, and I sort of think, well, yeah. I think, and Emily made the point actually. Leclerc in the dry in Austria cut across and hit Gasly and didn't get anything and destroyed his race. You think it was just a really weird one.
Yeah.
For the sake of balance, MT Cooper says he wasn't sandwiched. Lol. I mean, he was between 2 other cars. I call that a sandwich. If I put a bit of ham between 2 pieces of bread, that's a sandwich. He was definitely between the other 2 cars, whichever way you want to put it. Thank you very much to AC, member for 10 months on the channel. Dan, you need to poke me for memberships this winter, and if I don't do them, you need to drive to Lincoln and punch me. I'm offering a lot of people to come and punch me. I need to stop this. Gasly cites the Mercedes for 2023 post-Hamilton question mark. I'll try and remember to come back to that one when we do Q&A a little bit later, mate, but thank you very much. I just think it was really... Well, Marion says there, it's not harsh, it's just wrong. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like the right penalty, does it? It just seems really... Other than that, not an anonymous race. He played his part. He was overtaken by Hamilton. He was coming back at him towards the end of the race a little bit, although Hamilton actually last lap was much quicker, so maybe not so much. But there was a little moment where I thought maybe Gasly was going to get in that fight for P5. I suppose without the penalty, he could have been P5 today. So he'll be a little bit disappointed, I'm sure, that he didn't quite... it's a couple of points, isn't it? I think he'll be fine with 6th place. But teammate Yuki Tsunoda... was looking all right, actually. Was looking okay, and then he spun on lap 22. Car 22 on lap 22. Spun, and I picked up on something that Jensen Button said in commentary, that he noted that a lot of drivers seem to be overcorrecting mistakes this weekend. I don't know if that's something you picked up on, Dan, or maybe not. I don't know, probably not paying any attention. JB said it, and I was like, he's bloody right, you know. I hadn't really noticed it until that point. But yeah, a little bit disappointed for Tsunoda, or yeah, I guess his mistake. Snap in the wet going to happen, isn't it, to everybody at some point? He just couldn't keep that going, ended up in a spin, and then drops down to 14th, and that was sort of it. I'm sure he was running about 10th place, wasn't he, or at least challenging for a point?
Yeah, I think he was a little bit higher. I think he was around P8, P7, because I Because Hamilton had definitely made a few more overtakes before he got to Sonoda. And I think for Yuki, being able to fend off Hamilton like he did for those 4 or 5 laps was really, really impressive. In those conditions, to fend off a Mercedes, I think that was impressive for someone who is in their first year of Formula One. And when you see how quickly Hamilton dispatched some of those other guys in those opening few laps, credit where credit's due to Sonoda. But it's like we've said all season long, and it's almost a carbon copy of what we saw yesterday in qualifying. Great moments, fantastic moments, aka getting through to Q3, are also partnered with mistakes, like that spin we saw in qualifying as well. And yeah, I also picked up on that thing that JB said about drivers overcorrecting, because not only did it happen to Yuki twice, but we saw it with Latifi in the race as well. We saw it with Leclerc, we saw it with Russell, we saw it with Sainz yesterday in quali. So I think drivers were still getting used to that circuit, and also that massive change from last season where it was practically an ice rink for every single corner. So for Yuki, that opening stint, really, really good. That mistake obviously kind of just tore apart his Grand Prix. And from there on out was caught in that midfield, finishes 14th, which is kind of a result I think a lot of people would have expected him to be finishing going into this weekend. But he just needs to start putting those full races together now. And it's something I know you've said a lot here on stream post race. It's something he just needs to do to really start to cement his place in Formula One. I would say more next season. We're almost at the end of this one, but next year, I think that big thing to work on is just get that consistency to be able to put that full race together, full race weekend together with no mistakes is going to be his big, big target, because those moments of brilliance are definitely there. Fending off a 7-time world champion in the rain, that's no mean feat. Not many drivers could do that. So if he can just start to piece it all together, he's going to be comfortable. But if he can't, and if we do keep seeing these mistakes that are happening very often, then there's going to start to be a little bit of trouble.
I'll just repeat what I always say. The speed's there for Sonoda. He's very hot-headed, isn't he? But he has come through really quickly. Was it F3, F2, F1?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that's why people keep raving about Oscar Piastri, and I think, yeah, I'd love to see him get a chance, but if he doesn't win this is the trouble. If he doesn't win we're not getting into this too much, Sean, because I'll start, because that rule needs to go. But if he doesn't win the championship this year, then I think a second year in F2 would really do him the world of good. The trouble, if he wins the championship, he ends up as a reserve driver and people forget about him. That's the problem. Again, that F2 rule needs to go. I'm not going to bang on about it because I'll start. Lando Norris, P7. I've already said it. Anonymous weekender. It felt like it from McLaren. I thought we saw the weather. I thought, here we go. Another Lando special. Surprise qualifying result. Great race. Maybe he can maybe not win it, but get a great result like he did in Russia, or would have got in Russia without the rain late on. Just didn't really come together for McLaren today. I was a little bit disappointed with... I say disappointed. I'm going to stop, actually, and I'm going to say this. Don't remember seeing much of him, to be honest, Dan. So I don't want to sit here and say it's really disappointed, and then it turns out on Tuesday we see some great overtakes, some wonderful defending, and an amazing race from him. But based on the little I saw of him, I've not really got a lot to say. I mean, his teammate was... Danny Rick. I thought Monza was it, mate. I thought he was going to bounce back. This was it. It's not working, is it? And just a crappy weekend for McLaren. Great for Ferrari. They've had a bad weekend. Less than 8 points between them now. But yeah, what did you make of that one? You're going to tell me that Lando had the best race ever. It always happens.
I'm not. Don't you worry. I think I'm going to be kinder on Danny Rick. But just to start with Lando, yeah, it was just... I think anonymous is the right word to use, because we didn't really see him. The only 2 times I can think where we saw Lando was, first of all, when Lewis Hamilton overtook him with relative ease in that opening stage. He didn't have the car to fight it. Hamilton flying down the inside of the penultimate corner, and that was pretty much that for Lando's opening phase. And then we saw him right at the end, also with Hamilton, when he made that stop where Gasly and Norris were closing him down, but he wasn't able to do anything. So to start just inside that top 10, to finish with 7th is, in reality, it's disappointing considering his performances all season long. I think in context to this weekend, it's not too bad. But you're right, it was one of those races where we didn't see a lot of him, and their big focus of the season, of course, is Ferrari, and they've lost out to them. And again, pole position and a win in the last 2 races. So a huge, big smack in the face and crash down to earth for McLaren. But I think, Ricardo, I think you've been a little bit harsh. only because, I mean, yesterday was terrible out in Q1. I think wet conditions played a part in that a little bit. I don't think Ricardo's ever been one of the greatest drivers in the wet, and McLaren's pace this weekend wasn't brilliant. I think naturally, if it was in the dry, he probably would have gone out in Q2, if I'm fully honest. So I don't think that's the end of the world, though, of course, it's not ideal. I think they made a great decision in changing one of the parts of his engine to make him start from the back. I think that's proof of a perfect use of doing that. And I think the fact they called him in early, they were the ones that took that gamble to go on to that second set of inters early. Didn't work out initially, but it did late on. And then for some reason, I'm really interested to see why this is. With 2 laps to go, he lost 3 positions. He was in the points. And then all of a sudden, lost out to Gio and Raikkonen within the space of 10 seconds. So I'm really interested to see what that is, because for some reason, whether it was the tyres going off a cliff, I don't really know, but something's happened with Ricardo where he's got a really good comeback drive to points, and then he's just completely lost them with 2 laps to go. So I'm going to hold judgment a little bit until we see more on that. But I do think with everything going on this weekend, with the weather, with that gamble to go in early onto those inters, I don't think it was dreadful. But of course, yeah, comparing it to victories and fighting for podiums, you're right. It's not the greatest day for McLaren.
Yeah, I don't think I was harsh on Danny Rick, if I'm honest. I don't think I was harsh at all. I just think it was a very disappointing weekend, and he should be doing better in quali than
That's true, yeah.
where he was. Because at the end, his teammate today was 7th in that same car. And I think that I'd have given Ricciardo the excuses in Bahrain, that first third or so of the season, but now he's won a race in that car. Maybe not so great in the wet, but I think he shouldn't be being knocked out in Q1. And even if he was higher, he should have. I don't know. Now you've said that, I don't know why he dropped through the field, so I don't want to say too much and sound like I'm giving him the stick. So if anybody knows, let us know in chat, and we'll come back to him later. But I just think it was a disappointing weekend from him, but also the whole McLaren team. It was looking so good in Russia till those final stages. They won at Monza as well. They were looking like they were getting a stranglehold on that third place at one stage, and that sort of races like this are going to could really cost them. So either way, Danny Rick needs to be up to speed, and I kind of feel like a driver of his experience, and this is where maybe I'm a little unfair on him and Vettel. I feel like they should be closer to their teammates, if not beating them. Difficult because Norris has been in that car a long time. Stroll's had a couple of years in that team as well, so it's harsh to say that, but I don't know, it's just doesn't feel like we've got the real Danny Rick. And there'll be somebody, I'm sure, in the chat or in the comments that'll go, this is the real Danny Rick. He was overperforming in that Red Bull. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I'll have a look on Twitter when you next start chatting, mate, and then I'll see if I can find anything on Daniel Ricciardo that's cropped up. But Lance Stroll, P9, couple of points. Does that constitute a really decent result for Aston Martin these days? I mean, I came into this season expecting them to be challenging a little bit further up the field, but it's just not really happened, has it? And that's sort of, you see a ninth place for Aston, and every time I see a ninth place, I kind of give a similar reaction to an 11th place and kind of go, that feels about right.
I think so. It's not really nice to say, is it? But it's kind of just become a thing that we've got used to this season, where ninth place, it doesn't sound good. It doesn't look great considering their results last season. But when you look at the reality of this season, that's probably a good weekend for them. Beating the Alpine cars, beating a McLaren, an Alfa Tauri, that's not a bad return. And I think Stroll, who a lot of people would point out isn't the greatest driver on the grid, is a driver that faces a lot of criticism. He's been doing this all season long. And actually, in the driver's standings, he's only 9 points behind Vettel. So for him, it's not a bad race today. He kept his nose clean. Obviously, 12 months ago was in the fight for the victory. So a very, very different 12 months. But even still, I think races like today prove that Stroll can do a solid job in that car. But at the same time, Seb didn't really have a chance to respond today after that call to go onto the medium tyres, which very much credit where credit's due for keeping that Aston Martin pretty much in a straight line and to not go spinning round or careering off into the barriers, to get that car back round and almost hit the wall in the pit lane, but even then, keep it out of the barriers was very, very impressive. And I get it. Aston Martin today, ninth place, 2 points is what they were expecting. Why not give it a go? Why not take that chance, hope for a miracle? Didn't pay off, but I very much respect the gamble. And I think Seb was aware of that as well. He didn't seem too angry after the race or when they made that decision either. It seemed like a very much harmonious decision within the team. They went for it, didn't pay off. And I think you're right. It's sad to say, but ninth place, 2 points isn't a dreadful day for Aston Martin. It's not great, of course, but it's what we expect at this point of the season.
Just back to Danny Rick quickly. Placilovian says not a McLaren track today, and that's very much summed up in Daniel Ricciardo's quote. Said, I think we had maybe 4 laps in the race where we had good pace, but the rest was hard. In the beginning, we struggled a lot with front grip, so it was really hard to stay close to the others, and then we pitted for a new tyre. After that, I didn't have great rear grip. He did say it over the radio, didn't he? And was struggling, but after a while, it came good. We had probably 4 good laps in that stint where I could feel like I could really push on a tyre, which was what I was looking for. Just 4 laps. Wow. Of the entire race, that was the positive. So 4 laps of pushing on the Inters was the positive of Danny Rick's race. And you said I was being harsh, Dan. I got a bit excited because I thought maybe it would just keep getting better and better, but it lasted 4 laps and then the rear dropped away again. Obviously, we were fighting for the points and that strategy was our best chance, but it was just really unpredictable. I know others went longer, with one going the entire race on one set, but at the end I saw my tyres and they were on their last legs. It wasn't a strong race. We'll analyse. Positive side. Got plenty of brisket to eat very soon. So there you go. Positives for Danny Rick. So nothing actually there on why he fell back through. Maybe that rear grip was an issue for him in the end, Dan. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel. His quote, and I don't need to say any more than this. The gamble did not work out today. You think? He went on to dry tyres. Not just dry tyres, the medium dry tyres. So he didn't go on a nice, hot, sticky sort of set of softs. He went on the mediums and he was just all over the place. He was off pretty much straight away on pit exit, off several times through that lap, came in at the end of that lap, spun on pit entry. Shocking decision. As for why he made the decision, back to the Sebastian Vettel quote, something inside me was calling me to try dry tyres because there was nothing left on my intermediate tyres and I thought the dry tyres might work even if the track was still damp. But as soon as I left the pits, I knew it was the wrong decision. There was no grip and I could not make them work. It probably cost us a point or 2 because we ran inside the top 10 until that moment. I was really surprised how slowly the track improved, and it was similar to last year because it just did not dry out. Discuss. I mean, first of all, the thing inside him telling him it was dry was obviously the devil. Who made that decision? That was what was him, obviously. But that really weird. When he came out of the pits, I think Crofty was doing a double take in commentary. I really odd decision. And the fact they were running in the points as well, Dan, I know they're not having a great season. I'm just going to have a quick check while we're just covering this, but they're not having a great season. There's no denying that. And all right, maybe 1 or 2 points wouldn't have made much of a difference. They are 31 behind Alpha Tauri. But sort of, given that we think that Lance Stroll's performance today is about where we'd expect Aston Martin to be, was that an unnecessary gamble? Or do you think, given their position in the constructors, screw it, Seb, go for it?
I respect the gamble. I mean, it was very much one of the more interesting moments of the race, and of a man with all his talent and experience. I think if anyone was going to make it work, it would have been Seb Vettel. But it was way too wet. It was way too wet. It reminded me of Gasly I think it was Gasly a couple of years ago for Toro Rosso in Germany in 2019, was it? Where it was chucking it down and they threw him on the dries. Although AlphaTauri have never been very, very good at that. It was weird. I get it that it was make or break, and it was a chance where they could have gone flying up. Maybe these kind of races, it could have potentially given him a chance of a podium or a win if it suddenly dried and suddenly went his way. And I think what they were gambling on wasn't necessarily the weather, wasn't the fact that the circuit was wet, was more the fact it was very grippy, just due to the nature of was it water blasting they called it, of the circuit to give it that grip. And that's why the tyres that were intermediates ended up looking naked, looking like slick tyres by the end of their stint. And I think that's probably what they were more going for, taking the risk on. It didn't work out. But again, I respect it. I would have, and this is something I've just been really surprised at all season long. I'm surprised Haas never made that decision? I know they're just in their own formula at this point, but they never seem to go for anything like this. So the fact that Aston Martin fighting for points have gone for it, yeah, it's a bit weird. But either way, they're in this weird no man's land in the constructors' standings. Seb has had a solid year. Probably would have wanted that moment of glory, like we've seen already a couple of times this year with technically 2 podiums, if you want to count Hungary. So I get it, but it was a step too far. And as we all know, it definitely did not work at all.
Just bizarre. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like you say, if a Haas makes that call, you go, well, nothing to lose, may as well. But like I say, is a point going to make or break their season, really? It's not, is it? It's been pretty miserable. Raul says softs, cold, and graining issues, probably very true. Although they were graining on the Inters, although we're getting through that, weren't they? So maybe that's the decision not to go for softs. Just usually when we get a wet track, I think back to obviously different cars, different tyres, different compounds, different track, different conditions. But Germany 2019, when Verstappen came out on a harder tyre and was complaining they didn't go on a softer one, and you just think, you'd go soft, wouldn't you? But then we don't know, do we? We don't know what the conditions are like out there. Yes, it is water blasting, by the way, Dan. Judging by the water on the track today, probably too much water blasting. So they weren't just going all night with that one. Yeah, just a weird one for Seb, because he was all right up to that point. We've already talked about incident with, if you want to call it an incident, with Carlos Sainz. He did have a really good scrap with Esteban Ocon, who we'll come on to now, through his final couple of corners, very nearly contacting the final turn. I think the on-board, I was just waiting for a tag on that rear tyre, but he was involved in a few bits, Seb, and so with Esteban Ocon. Ocon, of course, the only driver to do the no-stop strategy, which takes me all the way back to Mika Salo in the Tyrrell, Monaco, 1997. Age. Anyway, Esteban Ocon point today. Didn't see a lot of him aside from that little moment with Seb, as I recall, Dan. Another one, I think a lot of focus was rightly on Carlos Sainz and what was going on with Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez and co. But decent result for him today. It's a point. It's a point more than his teammate got. We'll talk about him in a second. 21 seconds, though, behind Lance Stroll. So I'm just wondering if maybe only 7 tenths clear of Giovinazzi. He did stay out on the Inters, but clearly towards the end. I say clearly towards the end. I'm going to read the lap times to you. Esteban Ocon's final lap, a 1:37.271. Giovinazzi's final lap, a 1:32.904. So pushing 5 seconds quicker. So yeah, maybe that maybe gives us an idea then about Hamilton, I suppose. He was pushing harder, I'd say, than Ocon coming through the field. Would his tyres have dropped off a cliff and been 5 seconds a lap slower? He could have been even worse off than 5th place. So actually, making a stop when they did in the end maybe does make sense for Mercedes. But yeah, I've not got much to say about Ocon, apart from the incident with Seb, which wasn't even an incident. Really?
Yeah. To be honest, I've been a little bit confused with Ocon this weekend. I know the race today wasn't dreadful. A point is okay, but I feel like ever since that win in Hungary, he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. I don't know, maybe it's just me that I've not been looking at him a lot, but it seems like Alonso in this second half of the year really has had that bit of edge. And I'm annoyed we didn't get a chance to see Fernando today, because I think he really could have caused a lot of headaches for those front three. But yeah, today not a bad drive, and I think Formula One have posted it on their official Twitter as well. The image of Ocon's car in Parc Fermé, there is a huge blister hole, almost like a flat spot on that tyre at the end of the race. So a massive effort from him to get that car to the checkered flag without a pit stop. The only driver to do it. Credit where credit's due. But I thought that win would really spur him on for the rest of the season. I thought it'd give him that big kick to really start to challenge Alonso and push Alpine further into that midfield. But for whatever reason, it's not really materialised. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on that one, but today, not too bad.
Yeah, I've got nothing to... I feel bad because it's a point, but I've got nothing really to add to his day. Glad he tried the no-stopper, because we have an answer to the question, I guess, don't we?
Exactly, yeah.
So, which is nice. Thanks, Esteban, you legend. Fernando Alonso. Obviously, race kind of instantly compromised by the incident with Pierre Gasly, but made even worse by his move on Mick Schumacher, pitching Mick into a spin, which got him a 5-second penalty. I feel really almost out of order saying this about a nearly 40-year-old driver who's got a lot more experience in F1 than I have as a driver. I mean, anybody has. I mean, Nikita Mazepin does, for God's sake. But little bit of frustration maybe from that turn 1 incident. Threw it in there on Mick, and Mick was always going to turn in, wasn't he? So that for me is a penalty, and it's not because of his nationality before Alonso fans start bringing that up. I think that's a penalty, but I'm not sold on the Gasly one at all. So a little bit of frustration maybe, I guess is my question there, Dan.
Possibly. I think it was a very optimistic move, and I personally view it as I think Alonso felt like he had the right for the overtake, thinking that, well, and I know he's got plenty of experience, but the fact it was a Haas car, I think he probably thought Mick could be a little bit more lenient, maybe. But yeah, I think you could be right. A little bit of red mist that opening lap. I very much expected a classic Fernando Alonso radio call from that turn one incident when his name popped up. Wasn't too bad, thankfully. So this new Alonso, this fresh Alonso we've seen this year, is continuing, I feel. That radio call will come, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, not the best move from Alonso, and never really was able to recover, was he? 16th, only in front of guys really that also made mistakes or got caught up in incidents. So yeah, from where he started, he won't be happy with today at all. But the pace yesterday, phenomenal. That was really, really impressive. So I think there are positives he can take away from this weekend.
I fancied him for a podium if we had a bit of drama. I think he was pretty. I mean, 5th place in quali, was it? I thought, hey, we've got an Alonso day today, but it just didn't really happen. So I'm disappointed in that. He deserved the penalty for the Schumacher incident. Yeah, he kind of ended up just getting stuck then back there, didn't he? In the end. Just one thing on Ocon I meant to say, actually, and somebody just popped it in chat. Open the box, just making a point. I did see the pictures after the race of Ocon's tyres, the canvas, I think it is. Or the core, whatever you want to call it, coming through. So I think Lewis Hamilton has some similar pictures as well. So it was touch and go with them. Touch and go. Brave to make that decision. Other thing as well, we'll roll on to Alfa Romeo and the rest in a moment. I forgot, I think it was Adrian in chat. Adrian Rodriguez says, guys, read the comments. If I've missed something, mate, let me know. I can't see anything that I'm missing, so I can't see anything I'm missing. Does that make sense? Probably not. Let me know if I've missed something that I need to either deal with in terms of moderating, or if there's a point you wanted me to make that I've not picked up on. I am keeping an eye on it, but I'm sort of doing 6 other things at once with streaming, so I do tend to miss things, but let me know. Also, don't forget to drop a like. We're trying to get somewhere near 500 for Charles Edward Cheese. We're nearly at 300, so it's a push with just over 1,000 watching, but it'd be great if we could do that for him and his incredible contribution. Couple of super chats as well we'll do before rolling on to the rest of the field. Where did we get to? Austin, thank you very much for your contributions. And what happens with Jeddah if the track isn't done? I don't know if it's... I know there's a few question marks, isn't there? People sort of looking at it going, is that done yet? Are we anywhere near done? If it's not, I say beach buggies.
Yeah, or just go around it with it half completed. That's fine, surely.
Yeah.
Bit of rallying involved. That'd be fun.
I assume it's just it'll be a case that it won't go ahead. Obviously got to be homologated and all that business, hasn't it? But they're confident they'll get it done. These tracks do come together quite quickly as well, don't they, generally? So I've not actually seen the new or the latest pictures. That's one of my jobs for next week, because next Sunday, we're doing a stream, aren't we, Dan? And need to see if Jonty wants to do it as well for the calendar to discuss that. So I'm sure I'll have a look there and we can go over that a bit more. But thank you very much, Austin. Raz says, Mazepin blue flags, also Mazepin racing line appears. Going to get to Mazepin shortly. Raz as well. Thank you very much, mate. He says, just watch the onboard for Ricciardo again. He had a lot of issues with the rear of the car, brakes and tyres, and he just dropped off on pace. Thank you very much, mate. And Kazu. I'm hoping that's Kazu. I've been memorising your name all ruddy week. Thank you very much. There's nothing really to ask or say. Just wanted to see if you remember my name. I do. It's on my whiteboard. You are the only name on my whiteboard, Kazu. It's in big capital letters. Kazu. There you go. I do remember it. Right then. Like and subscribe. Blah, blah. All of that YouTube stuff. I'll have a look at chat in a minute and see if Adrian's come back to me on anything I've missed. But Alfa Romeo today. Gio, 7/10 off a point. Beat his teammate again, which is... Look, I'm not hating on Kimi when I say this. I really struggle to assess Gio's season because he's doing very, very well against Kimi Raikkonen, but we're not talking about prime Kimi Raikkonen here, are we? We're not talking about World Championship winning Kimi Raikkonen. We're not talking about those brilliant performances he put in a Lotus or when he won for Ferrari, but it's still something to beat a world champion of that experience. I think Gio could be very, very happy, but I've got to say it, and I know I've said it about a couple of drivers, the Alfa Romeos, Dan, they were there. I don't remember seeing an awful lot of them at all. Really?
I don't think we saw anything of them. All I can think of off the top of my head was when they were back markers, when they were being lapped. Because apart from that, I don't think we saw anything. I don't think Crofty or JB mentioned them once during the race. I don't think they were one of the first ones to come in for their pit stops. They didn't try anything crazy afterwards. I think after lap one, I think both of them had really good starts. And I think a couple of guys, we had Latifi had his spin. Alonso obviously had his spin. Sonoda had his spin. I think Russell didn't have a great start. So 11th and 12th, that's a good result for Alfa Romeo. But my goodness, can I just tell you absolutely nothing about their race, which I suppose on a day like today, when no one retires in those conditions, that's not a bad thing. If we didn't know anything that happened, at least there was no mistakes. At least Gio's doing what he kind of needs to do if he wants any chance of keeping that seat, which as the weeks go on seems less and less likely. But at least he's beat Kimi, and that is the only real thing he can do to prove he deserves that seat. Maybe if he was able to steal a point, I think that would have been really impressive today with their pace over the weekend. Of course, both of them out in Q1. So to finish one place off the points again for Giovinazzi is good. But again, I can't say too much because we just didn't see him.
Red Raver says, Alfa's done the same thing they've done all season. They existed. At this rate, Haas has more excitement this season than Gio Raikkonen. We make the joke about Carlos Sainz when not really seeing a lot about him. Obviously, today that was very different. Do you think Alfa are like the team version of Carlos Sainz when it comes to FOM? Because I feel like every single time we do a reaction, it's like Alfa Romeo. They're a team. I don't really know what to say because Gio was on it. Did Gio make a late stop? No. Gio was on it late on. He did 32.9 for Gio. His teammate a 37.3, Ocon a 37.2. So Gio was flying in that car late on. So I've said more words about Giovinazzi today than I think I've ever said, just by saying that. Bless him. Yeah. We'll talk about the Andretti Racing thing, I'm sure, later, but it seems that his chances of staying are disappearing, but he's doing all right up against a world champion, so meh. Could have had a point today. I bet he's so gutted. 7/10 of a second, one lap. Probably not even a lap. Couple of corners, and he's P10 today, and we're raving about him. That's the best thing to say. Kimi Raikkonen, not a lot I saw about him either, so I'm just gonna roll on. No offense to Alfa, no offense to Kimi fans. Sorry if you are an Alfa fan. I'm sure they'll get a lot of American coverage next year if Andretti come in, won't they? So that's a good thing for the team, definitely. George Russell, P15, was disappointed after qualifying. People seem to think, I think Williams said that he would have got through to Q3 as well. Was it Q3 or Q2? Q3, but
Q2.
On the app, the sector times, the sort of the mini sector in the final sector, he wasn't really setting anything alight, so it might have been closer than maybe people think, but still, he had a shot at Q3. 13th on the grid, 15th in the race. Williams, another one where this just sort of existed today, didn't they? Not a huge amount to say about them. They're back there. They finish, which is all you can do in these sorts of conditions. Not a race that Russell's going to remember for a while, I'd imagine, and same with Latifi. Anything you want to add, Dan? Amazing overtake. I mean, he was involved in that overtake or that battle with Sainz, wasn't he, briefly, was Russell?
Yeah. I mean, Latifi had his spin early on. Bless him. I mean, it's less spins than he had here 12 months ago, so that's improvement. Supposedly, according to Ted Kravitz, Russell had a great fight with Alonso that we never, ever got to see. And I suppose on that note, and partnered with Alfa Romeo, I do think TV direction wasn't great again this weekend. The fact that we've gone through so many of these teams and drivers and said, we didn't really get a chance to see them is a bit of a shame because I think there probably were some storylines and I would have liked to have seen Russell versus Alonso if I'm fully honest. But yeah, in terms of the result, in terms of the pace, it just wasn't there for Williams today. And if this was maybe before Belgium, before they started their crazy run of scoring points almost every weekend, we probably would have said this is fine. The fact that they've beat Seb, Alonso, the two Haas cars at the start of the year, that would have been a normal result, or not even a bad result in front of some of those guys. So yeah, not a great day for Williams, but probably about where that car should be in terms of pace anyway.
I'm actually annoyed now because Russell and Alonso, we've seen them together quite often this season, haven't we? I can remember, I keep bringing this up, but I can remember when Leclerc was at Alfa Romeo, his first season, we just always seem to see Alonso and Leclerc together on track. Kind of like Vettel and Raikkonen at one stage as well. It was always together, and that's kind of Russell and Alonso seem to be around each other all the time, and I really enjoy it when they start battling because they're both good drivers, very good drivers. Alonso is a double world champion, for God's sake, sure, so they're more than good drivers. They're very good drivers, a lot of respect for each other, and it's great seeing battle. It's a bit annoyed that we didn't see that one, so yeah. And I do sort of agree on TV direction, but I also think TV directors have got it hard this year because you've got a proper championship fight to focus on, then you've got an epic battle for third in the constructors, and you've got a really close field behind, and you've got to try and at least once a race get Mazepin and Schumacher on your TV direction. It's difficult to really focus on everything, and that's why so many videos come out over the next few days, I'm sure, and we'll go, oh, I wish that had come out before Sunday's reaction, but never mind. Let's finish up with Haas then. Schumacher and Mazepin. Schumacher was hit by Alonso. That kind of compromised him early on. Did very well actually to cut the gap to his teammate, and then not just cut the gap, overtake him and disappear 24.1 seconds up the road. With all due respect to Mazepin, yeah, it's not even a contest at that team, is it? They have little moments where they're together, and there was early on, there was a nice little fight between them, but once Schumacher gets ahead, he tends to just bog off, doesn't he, between those two. But Nikita Mazepin was a bit of a knobhead. At one stage today, I know everyone, that will really shock a few people. Mazepin had a moment. What was he doing? He's in a Haas. There's a Mercedes coming up behind you. You're getting blue flags. You've got sod all to fight for. He goes he's on the outside, isn't he, on the approach to turn 11, which you would be. Lewis goes to make the move to lap in, and then Mazepin cuts across. Hamilton has to back off a little bit, and then Mazepin on the straight pulls over to let him go. So I'll have a look just super quickly, Dan, while you're giving your thoughts on Mazepin being a knobhead, because that's the only thing I've got written in my notes. Literally those words. Just use your mirrors, although they're not easy to see out of, are they, I suppose? I'm trying to defend him. Can you?
I don't really think you can, sadly. I won't quite go as explicit as you on your own stream, mate, but I very much agree with that sentiment. It's madness. Like, come on, man. Race 1 or 2 in your career, maybe I can cut you a little bit of slack, but not when we're halfway through a season. Not when all race long, even though we were early on, you've been letting guys through. And when you're flying through the quickest part of the circuit, through that kink of turn 10, is it? Whatever it is, through the kink on the back straight, look in your mirrors, know there's a car coming. If you really want to defend him, and something Haas have always been terrible at, even this year, is they don't always tell their drivers when they're being blue flagged, which we've always said is ridiculous. They did it with Grosjean and Magnussen, and that always used to cause utter carnage. And it could have been even worse today, in all fairness. It's good John Hamilton had his wits about him and decided to back off, because that could have been a nasty crash. So it's unexcusable from Magnussen. Deary me. From Mazepin. Yeah, I know. From
How
Mazepin.
long was I asleep?
Sorry, K-Mag. Inexcusable from Mazepin. And on yesterday as well, Schumacher, godly lap to get into Q2. Well done, fair play. 3 seconds quicker than Mazepin. That's ridiculous. Like, even, no offense to any drivers here, but even, when Russell and Kubica were in their cars together, even when we had the likes of Will Stevens and Haryanto, I don't think there was a 3-second gap. 3 seconds is ridiculous. That, of course, there will be no question marks about that, because that's just how the team is. But a stinker of a weekend for Mazepin. And yeah, that moment with Hamilton, just kind of the icing, the cherry on top of just a dreadful weekend. And the fact Schumacher overtook him, the fact he wiped the floor with him at the checkered flag. great for Schumi. I think that was one of his better weekends, apart from the crash, of course, with Alonso. That was definitely not his fault. But Mazepin, just terrible.
Just two things to add on Haas. First of all, you've made the point I was already going to, but I'll make it anyway. There's no mention really of it. In fact, there's no mention at all of the incident, if you want to call it that again, in Haas's press release. I know, shocked. Mazepin has said before that communication hasn't been great, and that he's not always told in good time, but at the same time, use your mirrors. You've just had one come through. Chances are, if the leaders are lapping you, another one's going to come through. Yeah, there you go. But on a positive, super from Mick Schumacher yesterday. Possibly him and Gasly were my drivers of the day for qualifying on Saturday. I think Mick, great lap, great qualifying. Probably the best he could do in that. Was it a season best qualifying as well? But probably the best he could do in that car. So well done to him. He doesn't. I know the car's not great, so it's kind of hard to judge. But he doesn't seem to be struggling with first season syndrome like we've seen through his junior career. So that's a positive. But he is, with respect, only battling his teammate. So it's hard to really tell. But he seems racy when he gets a chance. Obviously against Max Verstappen in Hungary was fantastic. So yeah, that's about the best I could say for Mick Schumacher today. Driver of the day, Dan. Carlos Sainz was the official driver of the day. First of all, do you agree? Secondly, who's your driver of the day? I've written mine down in advance. I've started doing that before the stream, so I have evidence when I go, oh, he's just saying that.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with Carlos Sainz, but he's not my pick, if that makes any sense. I think Charles Leclerc is my driver of the day. I think Ferrari as a package were bonkers today. But as I mentioned right at the start of the stream, Leclerc's pace to be over 20 seconds in front of the likes of Norris and Gasly, a full pit stop in front of them, to be 2 seconds off Max, 3 seconds off Bottas for over half the race. For me, that is mind-boggling. For me, it's the kind of performance we saw in Silverstone, but I think even better than Silverstone, because we had Max and Bottas still in the race, still in the fight, in those mixed conditions to make one lockup, but we'll forget that for the sakes of this, and to almost have a sniff of a victory, keeping him out late on. If they'd have pitted him at the right time, I think it would have been a podium. I really think a faultless day for Leclerc, but I totally get Sainz. It's really close between the two of them, but for me, Leclerc just edges it, which I can imagine a lot of people are not happy with me about.
I'm a shockingly bad YouTuber and streamer at the minute. Not only is the sod all content for reasons I won't bore you with, also I forgot to give the call to order to the call to action to chat. Let me know one surname, your driver of the day, and I will read some out when I've waffled for a minute so you can catch up. So you went with Leclerc. Interesting.
I've given you the easy one this week, which I'm sure you haven't noted down because you thought I'd go for the easy one.
I didn't think you'd go for Leclerc. My prediction for Dan's driver of the day was, and I'm going to read it after Grosjean, probably Tsunoda.
Tsunoda, hang on. I know I'm not the most sensible at times, but Tsunoda.
I mean, no, Leclerc's a great shout. I didn't write him down. He could have won this race, 4.3 behind Perez. I mean, shoulda, woulda, coulda. It was big ask to win that race on those tyres, wasn't it? Actually, just on that subject, Blackhawk so did share a picture on Twitter. I can't put it in the stream, mate, because F1 TV and FOM will give me nothing but grief. But his right front, you can see opening up. It was a right mess. Go check that out. I'll give it a retweet right now. So check that out on my Twitterer at F1word. But yeah, that's opened up really nasty. So you can see why he was losing time and why Mercedes were probably right to make the stop in the end. My driver of the day, I've got two and I can't. Perez.
Wow.
I think that's a bit left field. I don't know why. I just feel like it is. He did the job a number two driver needs to do today. Great fight with Hamilton. Critical moment of the race, potentially. Oh, I don't know. No.
Didn't beat his teammate.
It's got to be Sainz, hasn't it? I've got to give it to Sainz. Yeah. It's got to be Sainz. They're my two, with Perez and Sainz. Shout out to Hamilton, obviously, for coming through from 11th to 5th, but yeah, I'll go Sainz. I know it's the boring pick because others did, but my other one, I think Perez deserves a lot of credit for that today. But I think also partly because I feel bad for the last reaction, but also yeah, I don't think, aside from your Sainz's, your Hamiltons, your Perez, maybe Bottas deserves a lot of credit for his drive today. I mean, he does deserve it, but I don't know if it'd be enough for driver of the day. I don't know how the driver of the day is a popularity contest. So I'd be interested to know if, let's say, Lando Norris had driven like that today in a Mercedes. I mean, if it would have been a different outcome, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, you get my point, I'm sure. The popularity contest, so the more popular the driver, the more likely they are to win. It's why Verstappen was winning for so many bloody races in the past. Yeah, I've got Sainz, why not? Sainz for F1 Fan 89. Platilobum goes for Sainz as well. Bottas for Clansum. I think Bottas, yeah, good shout on Bottas it is. Sainz for Adam. Oksana, Corolla, Sighted Canvas. I think I've just said Adam already. Emily's gone with Perez as well. Oh, Emily, we're nuts. Clearly, we're the mad ones. Ono says Sainz as well. Bottas for M7 Movies. Elliot says Bottas, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Sainz. It's a 4-way tie. Gotta be Sainz for Evan. Open the Box says Perez for his epic side-by-side action. Driver of the day, Hamilton for Ray Ninja. Perez was wingman of the day, says Sighted. That's a great shout, wingman of the day, although Bottas won the race, Dan. Took points away from Hamilton's championship rival, so is he wingman of the day? Let's not open up a whole new award. Oh my God. Mario says Bottas. Pauline says Gasly. Gasly's a good shout. I think he drove well today. He drove well all weekend, actually. Lol says Mazepin. I'm trying to avoid the Sainz because everyone's saying Sainz. Kimberly's saying Sainz as well. Fernando says Sainz. Yeah, it's all Carlos Sainz out there. A lot of Leclerc love as well, so you're not alone, Dan. You're not alone, mate. There's some Leclerc love as well, which is good. Hamilton and Leclerc driver of the day. Raul says a Ferrari radio or Leclerc. The Ferrari radio was ridiculous. I can't get over that. If you keep Bottas behind you, you P1. That's not the question he asked, but thanks anyway. Sam says Leclerc as well. Andre says Perez. Yeah, Lewis for Visual Ghoul. Raz says why not Gasly. Bob says Tsunoda defending. Hamilton was great. Aiden says Ferrari. Stein says Bottas on World Porridge Day. I'm typing away now. Is it actually World Porridge Day?
Surely not.
It bloody well is World Porridge Day.
Surely not. Come on.
It is World Porridge Day. Thank you, Stein, for spotting that one. It's got to be Bottas then. There you go. Easy. Yeah, thank you very much. If you've got any questions, by the way, do start popping them in chat, and I will come to read a few. Ideally, related to the Grand Prix or the weekend, of course, but we'll answer pretty much anything on air. Let's be honest, Dan, we do, don't we? But I can't believe how that's lined up. World Porridge Day. That's crazy.
His last ever F1 win on World Porridge Day.
Do you know, it sounds awful. I actually kind of hope it is his last ever F1 win. What? It's kind of synced up perfectly, hasn't it? I like it when things like that happen. I don't mean that. Of course, I'd love it to win more races, but yeah, great that it's happened today. Thoughts on Button's commentary? Says Malinga, says dull in my opinion. I was just relieved it wasn't Paul di Resta, quite frankly. How can I word this? The problem is when you've had Nico Rosberg in the commentary box, everybody else, to me, is a bit of a downgrade because I think he was brilliant in Hungary alongside Crofty, and I kind of wish Sky would do the deal to get him in at least as Martin Brundle's replacement when he doesn't turn up to weekends, and maybe Martin Brundle's long-term replacement, because I'd much rather have Nico Rosberg there than Paul di Resta.
I think I'm with you on that one. I don't think JB was bad. I think, if I'm honest, I think JB calms Crofty down. I don't think Crofty was his normal self today. I don't think he was as excitable and energetic. So I think that's the only issue with that. But Rosberg is fantastic. So I'm very much with you on that.
That's a good point, actually. I always stand up at the start of races because I get overexcited. So I have to be stood up in case I need to jump around like an idiot. And I didn't get any of that from Crofty. He's normally really excitable, isn't he, on the first lap? And I didn't really feel that. So I don't know if he's not very well or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, it wasn't quite as punchy as usual. I like the way you've put that one. Do you want a stat?
Go on. It's not going to beat World Porridge Day, just so you know.
Oh,
it is. My mind. Okay.
Red Raven. So Bottas winning his 10th win on the 10th of the 10th month. And on World Porridge Day.
And on World Porridge Day, yeah. Okay, that's... Is it the 10th World Porridge Day as well, by any chance?
Oh, I bet it probably is. All perfect. Black Hawk, so thank you very much for your contribution. Says Pirelli said to Sky that they advised all teams that for safety to change tyres. Do you think they should have broadcast that on the world feed? Thank you for pointing that out. I did jot that down somewhere in my mess of notes, which is about 6 pages long somehow. I need to get smaller handwriting. Yes, they did. Pirelli said afterwards they'd sort of wanted to advise teams to make the change. I'd like that to be broadcast. Maybe it's something we can have in the future. I love the FIA thing this year that we've got between the teams and the FIA. So if they could bring that in with Pirelli as well, that'd be great. But at the same time, I'm getting a bit sick of hearing 2 seconds, Ted. So I don't want too much more team radio. Thank you to Emily as well. Help Sean get drunk in London Fund. That is changing names every week, I'm sure it is. Thank you very much, Emily. And Raz again says Mercedes dominates the turbo hybrid era. Also, their Achilles heel when it comes to making small strategy mistakes under pressure when fighting and chasing versus coasting away as they have in the past. I was thinking about this, and I won't say too much. And it was discussed briefly in Discord, or in DMs with somebody in Discord. But it does seem that under pressure now, as Raz has said there, Dan, that Mercedes are making a lot more mistakes in strategy than we've seen since 2014. So I guess just to re-throw that question at you again, do you think this is because it's the title fight and it's the pressure and they've had it a little bit too easy over the last few years? I've really thrown you right under the bus there. I'm so sorry. I'm not at all.
That's okay. No, to be honest, my initial thought or my initial feelings when you started reading out that question is that I feel they were great against Ferrari in 2017 and 18. And I don't know if that's more Mercedes were bang on with their strategy or Ferrari were bad. And I think most people will go with the latter of that one. But then maybe last year, they were kind of in a world of their own, so they didn't need to. And this year, it's been a bit up and down because definitely in races like, Bahrain's not a great example, but Spain is a race where they won it because of their strategy. Paul Ricard maybe made a slight mistake, but that could have gone either way. So I think it's been ebbing and flowing. And last weekend, they got it bang on. This weekend, they didn't because of the weather. And the weather's always a difficult one to call. So I don't think it's been dreadful. But you're right. And sorry, I didn't catch the name if you asked that question. But I do think you're bang on with the fact that those little mistakes have been happening more often. But then maybe last year where there wasn't a fight, we didn't notice because they were so far out in front, those little mistakes weren't highlighted as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's who just said it. Open and box says Merc strategists are used to leading at the front with a 30-second gap. They aren't used to making up places. They're generally speaking not having to, for the most part, having to make those decisions on the fly. I mean, I was watching a video the other day. I don't know if it was a recent one, if it's from last year or something, but the double stack in, was it China? That Mercedes did one year that was absolutely perfect, but they have that margin. That's a gamble they can't really afford to take this year. So it's an interesting one. I mean, they've definitely made more mistakes this year. There's no denying that, but and questionable decisions. But again, it's easy to sit here on a Sunday, a couple of hours after the race, and say that they should have done this and they should have done that. Of course it is, but I mean, whichever way you look at it, they can't be as bad as Ferrari strategists. I suppose is a way to put that one. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm going to look a little bit deeper into that one with somebody, but we'll leave that one there. Minty says, are they pulling a Ferrari? There you go. I just saw an interesting one actually from Lee Bull, who says, gut reaction, I think Mercedes might have cost Lewis the title today.
Oh,
it's a big 6 points with 6 races to go in this title fight. That is a big call, Lee. But I'll try and remember that one because that'll be an interesting one to come back to at the end of the season. Do you know what? Lee Bull was spot on. Absolutely spot on. So I'll try and remember to come back to that one. Why does the trophy have an 8 on it? Says Sam. I can't picture the trophy in my head now. Yeah, it's a bit of a figure of 8, isn't it? To be fair.
Yeah.
I think is it supposed to be the Turkish flag somewhere in there?
Yeah, that was my thinking. Rather than it being an 8, I thought it was like the top of the moon and the star, and then the bottom was just to make it look nice.
They're going to break into a song then.
Not today, but one day. That's my thinking, but I can't say I've studied it that much. But also, it could be, I'm just spitballing, it could just be a nice nod to Grosjean, number 8. I don't know.
You can't let it go, can you?
I'm doing my duty.
Who does Grosjean race for at the minute?
He's just changed team, my friend. He's driving for Andretti. So if we get a question later on,
I was just going to bring that up.
Please come to me.
I was going to say, talk of Colton Herta coming in. If this Andretti deal goes through, apparently we might hear more around the US Grand Prix weekend. Andretti out. I don't think it'd be Alfa Romeo, would it? Or would it be Andretti Racing? Or would it be Andretti Sauber? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if they come in and buy them, talk of Colton Herta maybe coming from IndyCar to F1, which actually does quite excite me a little bit. But if Grosjean races for Andretti, there you go, mate. Kind of a shame it's not like Mercedes or Red Bull where he deserves to be, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, would you be... First of all, what do you think of the rumour? Do you think it's something that is going to happen? Does it excite you? Or do you think you're quite happy with Alfa Romeo Sauber as they are?
My gut reaction is I love it because it does mean there's a chance for Grosjean to come back. is my gut reaction. I think I'd prefer it if they just made another team because I think Alfa Romeo are really good for Formula One. I think it's nice that, I know it's not really the case anymore, but I think it's nice that we do have a semi-Ferrari B team. I think that's something that's quite nice. I think Sauber are a team that have so much history in Formula One, so I'd be sad to see them go. But I do love the sound of Andretti. I think that'd be great to have the Andretti name back in Formula One. I think we've seen McLaren go to IndyCar and be successful, almost winning the Drivers' Championship this year. So I'd like to see Andretti come back over here and give it a go in Formula One. And I think Colton Herta, who I think it was right at the start of this year of IndyCar, I'm not the biggest versed fan of IndyCar, but I watched most of it this year. He's been insane. He's been so good, lacking a bit of consistency, but he's very much, from my understanding, the Verstappen of IndyCar. So that would be a big loss for them, but a huge gain for Formula One. And I think arguably he is the best American driver at the moment. I'd love people to have a go at me in chat for that, but from my understanding, he's right up there with some of the best. And I think he'd do a great job in Formula One. So I'm all for it. I think it's one of those things where if it doesn't happen, fine. Alfa Romeo have got Bottas, of course, and have got plenty of other options to go in that car alongside him. So it's no real loss if we don't. But at the same time, if Formula One are very much keen on bringing more Americans to Formula One, and of course, we're going to Miami in May next year, which is not even 6 months away. So if we could have Andretti on the grid as well, maybe bring a Grosjean or a Colton Herta with them, I'd be very keen for that as well.
He's only 20. Is he 2021 as well? So he's young.
Yeah.
So he fits that profile that, assuming he'd still have some say in it, that Frederick Vasseur wants a young driver to build around for the future. I mean, he has a young driver to build around for the future in Théo Pourchaire. But I don't know. It's a tough one. I saw a point here, and I'm going to try and find the name because I think they deserve a shout out because they're right in my head. Because I was going to come to this. Aidan says prefer Andretti to be their own team, and Pourchaire would never get a seat if they bought Sauber. I've kind of good point on Pourchaire, but if Andretti are coming in, I'm kind of disappointed it's not as an 11th team, because if there's one thing that we keep saying on these streams, and you guys say in chat, you see it everywhere. One thing we keep banging on about is there are not enough teams in Formula One, and there's so much talent coming through and so many people missing out on seats that we need an 11th and a 12th team. So it's kind of a shame that Andretti aren't coming in with their own team. But I also appreciate it's not a bloody cheap thing to set up, and if it's got to be much easier and much cheaper to invest into or buy out a team like Alfa Romeo Sauber, who already have all that infrastructure in place, and then come in and slap your name on it and take over from there, that's cheaper and easier than starting from scratch. But I'm just kind of gutted that they're not looking at bringing in a new team. And even the talk of Porsche in the future coming in, the VW group, and all of this stuff around the new engine, it all seems to be tying in with Red Bull or tying in with somebody else. It's like, nah, come on. Let's get rid of this stupid fee they've got to pay that's like I keep calling it a deposit. That's not what it is, but it's how it feels. Putting their deposit down, which is obscene, coming into the sport. Get rid of that and let's get a couple of teams in, and then we're not going to be losing drivers who not should or not deserve. Because I hate saying deserve. Because if somebody deserves to be on the grid, then probably would be. But I just, you know what I mean? You look at F2, and it's not all about young drivers either. But you look at F2, you win the title. You may not get a seat in Formula One. I know Formula One isn't the be-all and end-all, but you don't get a seat in F1. You end up as a reserve driver. You get forgotten about. And I just feel like we've lost drivers like that in the past. And you bring in a couple more teams, that's 4 seats. And suddenly, you know, Alfa might go with a Guan Yu Zhou, but then you've got a seat for Oscar Piastri. You've got a seat for potentially Colton Herta to come over. You know, drivers from other series. There's room for Stoffel Van Dorn and Romain Grosjean in a team together. That'd be hilarious, Dan. I want to see a couple more teams on the grid. It's just a shame that nobody seems to be doing that at the moment, but hopefully the new engine regulations in 25, 26, somewhere around there, we might get somebody in. But let me know in chat, actually. One manufacturer or one team from another series you'd love to come into Formula One. You know, forget about money, forget about how realistic it is. Let me know. It'd be interesting to see what people say. I'd quite like to see, I mean, saying BMW, I'd quite like to see a big manufacturer come in like a BMW or, you know, the VW group, something like that, Dan. Still miffed that Honda are leaving. Could have bought their own team, you know, but whatever. Go do your thing.
The one I mean, I don't want to steal the question from the fans in the chat, but I would love to see Renault come back. And I know they've only just gone, but I really think with the incredible talent they've got in their junior team, I don't see why they can't have Alpine and Renault and make one of them probably Renault, because Alpine, their road car brand, is supposedly more luxurious, if you want to go that route. But I thought it'd be really fun to put Guan Yu Zhou, your Oscar Piastris, Christian Lundgaard, who is insane in his IndyCar debut. He's still got speed. They've got so many great youngsters, and they've got guys in F3 as well. Victor Martin. I don't think Max Futrell's part of that anymore. But either way, I don't see why other teams don't look at having B teams. I mean, Mercedes linking up with Williams a little bit more now. Red Bull, of course, got Alfa Tauri. Ferrari, not so much with Alfa Romeo and Haas these days. But considering Alpine are the only team with a Renault engine, I think it says a lot about the payment structure of making a team in Formula One that they probably didn't even consider having 2 teams on the grid, which again is a shame when you look at what incredible drivers they have in their junior program.
Yeah, it's weird that, because you could have been stayed of Renault. The Enstone team could have stayed Renault, and then you could have had Alpine as a sister team, couldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
They've got all this talent. They're trying to find a seat for drivers at other teams, and it's like, well, it's not as cheap as this. It's not as easy as this, I know. But just make your own team. You know, it's that simple, yeah. Apparently. But no, I get, yeah, it would be nice. I think there is always that risk that we're going to end up with a bunch of B teams anyway. I still think those rules should be opened up. If a team like Haas want to buy all their bits from Ferrari, let them. It's just the way I see it. Obviously, there's got to be restrictions on some stuff, but I don't see it as an issue for me. People will talk about the DNA of F1, but that's all. It evolves, doesn't it? And as I'm sure we'll talk about next Sunday, Dan, when we get onto calendar and sprint races, things are changing in Formula One. So yeah, I'm going to read through some of these manufacturers that people are shouting out. I might not do your name. I just want to read them out because they're fascinating. Obviously, Porsche are big in there. Carl is saying it. RC saying Porsche as well. Red Raver said Team Penske. Tesla says Commodore 64. Bruno says Ford. Emily's gone with Lamborghini. Axel's gone with Koenigsegg. Audi for Roman. Sorry. Read that one wrong. F1 Fan 89 just wants Honda to stay, I think. I'd like Honda to stay. Aiden says Carlin. Jaws says Prema. Black Hawk So says Mazda. Vauxhall. Harrison Miller says Chevy. Pagani says Stefan. Oh, the Zonda. I love the Pagani Zonda. Sorry. Hyundai says Minty. How about Nissan? See, I say that with a joke, but they've built some good cars. All I picture is a Nissan Micra. For some reason, when I think of Nissan, it's terrible. It really, really is. Anything different? Toyota. We used to have Toyota. It'd be nice to see Toyota back. That'd be good. Chevy, we've had Chevy already. A couple of people laughing at Hyundai. Saab, Skoda, Volvo. Here we go. I wouldn't mind seeing Ford back. They've got quite a lot of history in F1 with Ford Cosworth and all that business. That'd be nice to see them back. Maybe even this Jaguar would be good. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many teams that could, isn't there? Just come on, come to F1. It's fun. It's fun this year. Don't think about next year or the future engine. Just come and join the fun this year. Why not? Bugatti, says J. James. That could be a laugh. Mahindra. Some FE crossover there, Dan. Do you fancy that?
That could be interesting. I mean, half the grid are leaving Formula E at the moment, so I'd like to see one team stay.
Yeah, let's not get into Formula E stuff.
Yeah, please, let's not.
Yeah, there are some... I don't think the series is dying or anything, but there's a little bit of concern around it at the moment, isn't there, with teams leaving, and it seems like manufacturers are starting to go a different way to the way that Formula E is going, which is bizarre. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. I haven't followed FE properly for ages. In fact, at all, this last year has been it's been mental anyway, but it's been so weird. I did see a message I can't even find now from, I think it was Stein. I think he was asking about who's going to come out on top at the end of the season. I think we had this conversation a few weeks ago, Dan. Has your opinion changed? Do you still think it's going to be Max for the title end of the year?
I can't even remember what I said. Did I say Max?
Yeah, you said Verstappen. I said Hamilton. So if you say Hamilton, I'll say Verstappen. We've covered both bases.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. What? It's COTA next weekend, Mexico. I will go Max. I think we spoke about it earlier with maybe another engine penalty of sorts coming Hamilton's way. He's been 3 races, is it now, without a win for Verstappen? That's probably his longest streak of the season. So I expect him to bounce back a little bit over the next weekend. But also, I just think this year he's just been incredibly consistent. I think Hamilton certainly had his ups and downs, and it's been one of, I don't want to say his worst seasons for a while, but I think for Max, he's really taken that big step up this season. And though it's been a quiet second half of the season, I think he's going to close it out in style. It's going to be close, and there's no way of actually telling who it's going to be. It's certainly going to be the flip of a coin, and very easily, Max would have a lap 1 incident next weekend and his championship's over. But I do think he has just been that step above what he's normally been this season. Hamilton's been as great as ever, and it wouldn't surprise me if he still went on to win it. But yeah, I suppose my gut reaction is still, I think Max just has that little bit too much this year for Mercedes.
It is. I agree with Christian Horner. I thought it was Christian Horner who said that it's going to be 50-50 between now and the end of the season, because you've got Circuit of the Americas, and this is all on paper. Obviously, it's such a close season. Past form is sort of irrelevant in some ways, but on paper, Circuit of the Americas is generally a Mercedes track. Mexico, Brazil generally seem to favour Red Bull. You'd say Abu Dhabi, apart from last season, generally favours Mercedes. And then you've got the unknowns of Qatar and Saudi Arabia in the middle of that, which could go either way. That's about as 50-50 as you can get, isn't it? And 6 points. 6 points is nothing. You've just absolutely smashed it. It's not even comfortable. Like you say there about if he crashes out in Verstappen crashes out in lap 1, it swings another way. Hamilton wins at the Circuit of the Americas and Verstappen is second. He goes a point clear. If Verstappen gets fastest lap, they're level on points. Going to Mexico and Brazil, there's nothing in it. 6 points is nothing in this era of Formula. It's never really anything in Formula One, was it? But with the 25 points for the win, 26 with fastest lap, I can't call it. And it's not me copping out. Or if I tell you who I think will win it, it'll just be a guess. It's a toss of a coin. So I said Hamilton last time, I'll go Verstappen this time. And then I'll probably say Hamilton after COTA and then probably Verstappen after Brazil, because it really is that close. And I said it in my preview and I stand by it. If I could sit on a Thursday or on a Sunday afternoon and tell you who I thought was going to win the race, or who was going to win the race, or who is definitely going to win the championship, this season would suck. So I'm so pleased that it's so unpredictable. I really, really am. It's brilliant. Best season since 2012. Easily. The whole field. Fantastic. Black Hawk says the 8 trophy is to honour turn 8 on the track. I want that to be true. If that, I want that to be. That is a great corner. Yet again, though, Dan didn't get to see them in race trim, flat out round turn 8. Could be the last time we see Turkey as well, which is bloody annoying. I think it's on the. I've seen a draft leaked-ish version of the calendar, and it seems to be a couple of races like Imola and Turkey that are sort of on the list of potential replacement venues for next year. And but by the way, the reason I say I've seen it, I've not been sent it. I've read it in an article, but I cannot remember who it was, so I don't want to say it was this person. It wasn't. I've not got Toto Wolff there going, "Yeah, mate, here's the calendar for next year." That'd be cool. But yeah, I think that's on the list of possible replacements. Talk that Imola's getting a 4-year deal. Oh, it's so excited. Possibly replacing Paul Ricard. We'll do all this next Sunday, Dan. Why am I doing it now? I'm mad. Okay, one surname in chat before we go. Who's winning the title? Verstappen, Hamilton, or is Valtteri Bottas going to go on a surge now and shock everyone? It could be Bottas, couldn't it? I mean, why not? It's not going to be Bottas. Don't forget to drop a like as well. 386 so far. We are getting close to 500. So if you could drop a like, please do, because then we get that 500 for Charles Edward Cheese. I don't know if he gets offended if we don't get 500 likes. He's never said that he does. Please. So yes, that'd be massively appreciated. So please do drop a like as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Worst case scenario, next week there'll be a video on Friday and there'll be a live stream on Sunday, but I'll try and get something else out in the meantime. I'm off Christmas shopping on Tuesday.
Oh, that's lovely.
Christmas decoration shopping, I should say, I think. Go and see some posh decorations at Doddington Hall and then go from there. So that'll get more expensive than Christmas present buying. Definitely. Yeah. I'm just going to have a quick skim through. I'm not going to read them out. Quick skim through. On the serious ones of Verstappen versus Hamilton, I'd say chat on a quick skim is just leaning towards Verstappen, but I don't think it's a million miles away from 50-50. Hamilton, Verstappen, Verstappen, Hamilton, Verstappen, Verstappen, Hamilton. I think it's about 50-50, Dan. We don't know, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm very much enjoying this season. We'll wrap it up there, though, mate, because otherwise I'm just going to be waiting for the chat to ask me questions. Are you going to M&S? No, I'm not going to M&S. God, give me time to get older, please. I'm 35. Yes. And yes, I'm Christmas shopping on October 10th. We live in the UK, Max. We need to get it while we can. I'm having a pop at Max now. I'll get a DM later. Like, that's so mean to me. Yes, Dad. Thank you very much, mate. That's what I was saying. Pleasure as always. Still a good race. I enjoyed that one. I always enjoy Turkey. It's one of my favourite Tilke tracks. Circuit of the Americas next. I know you're not on for that one because it is going to be a late stream. Good Lord. But I'm going to be honest. I'm really looking forward to US Grand Prix this year, right? It's one of those tracks that I really missed last year.
I've always said it, and I know I'm always in the minority when it comes to tracks. I think Circuit of the Americas is one of my favourite. It's top 5 for me. I love it. I think it always gives us great racing. Last 2 races, it's been a Finn that has won it, so maybe Raikkonen can spring a surprise for one more time. But either way, championship fights. Ferrari versus McLaren. There's going to be stories. There's going to be drama. And we might get a little Andretti announcement in the meantime as well. So should be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, no worries, mate. It's been a pleasure. And I'm sure I'm just so excited for the rest of this season. It's ridiculous. I can't help it. And I'm sure I'll talk to you shortly, mate. Thank you very much.
See you later. See you later, chat.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you to you guys in chat as well. Yeah, I keep saying I'm very excited. I think Clancy asked for a Constructors' Championship prediction. I think Mercedes, I think Bottas will be more consistent between now and the end of the season in Checo. Not a knock on Checo. I just think that's how it'll go. So Mercedes for the Constructors, definitely. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for your likes so far. 414. If we can get some more, that'd be great. But yeah, not the end of the world. If not, Charles will just have to cry. I'm joking. I'm joking. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Like I say, there will be a video covering the calendar news and a roundup next Friday. There'll also be a stream next Sunday, probably around 5 p.m. UK time. We're going to talk about that calendar on Friday and the sprint races apparently at a third of Grand Prix next year. Not going to be a popular decision, I'm sure, but lots we could talk about there. Don't forget, you can follow me on social media. All of the links for that are in the description down below, I think. If they're not, they're on screen there. At F1 Word on Twitter, the F1 Word on Instagram. Not that I ever bloody use Instagram. And F1 Word on Facebook. I need to use Insta. There's loads of pictures I could be sharing. But anyway, random tangent. Nothing to say. So I'm just going to go. It's a pleasure as always. There was something, I'm sure there's something bugging me. There's something I need to tell you and I can't remember what it is. I really, really can't. So I'll pop it on Twitter if I think what it is. I'm not going to apologise for taking a break last week for reasons I won't bore you with. I keep getting told off for apologising, but yeah, I'm going to go. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. This has been the worst sign out I've ever done. I'm reading chat while I'm trying to do it. And until next time, goodbye.